You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find. Welcome to the One More for the Good Guys podcast, where good guys gather to shed light on the good life, the people, and the good things that make it that way. I'm Mike McGill with my co-host, Jamie Akins. Now, raise your glass, lend us your ear, and let's have one more for the good guys. You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find.
On today's guest episode, we have a Lafayette native and our friend and soon-to-be yours, Mr. Alex Leach. Multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, historian, DJ, and a young man who is keeping the traditional sound of bluegrass alive. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alex Leach.
Now, sorry, don't cut it.
Fine.
All right,
Are y'all comfortable?
Yeah.
Cold, warm? You need some heat?
I'm good.
I can have us toasty here in just a
I hate
second.
to be a big baby about it, but you could turn that on. I don't know if it's just...
Look at that.
Lord, yeah.
It's a damn Eagle Scout, and you didn't know it.
That's it.
Oh, me. Yeah, it's it goes from -3. We got 11 and a half inches of snow here.
Golly.
And it was -3, the coldest one, of one of the nights. And then, of course, we had a week of really cold, and then everything finally started melting and all that stuff. And get up into the 40s and 30s and 40s, then the 50s. And then, last week it was, at one point, one of the days towards the middle of the week, it was like 62, 63 here.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the other night I was sitting in here. I was going over some work and making some notes on things and listening to a little music, and I thought, dang, I'm cold.
Yeah.
And I got a thermometer over there on the wall, and I got up and looked at it, and it was 60 in here. And I was like, well, that's not terribly cold. I said, but, the last 3 days I hadn't run my heat at all because it's been warm enough, and this place is insulated well enough that it's about a 20-degree swing.
Right.
So I can fly by my instruments, with... If it's 50-something or 50 in the 50s or even down into the mid-40s, I don't have to turn any heat on in here, And
right.
I was like, holy cow. And then I pulled up the app on the phone, and it was showing like 33 or something crazy. And I was like, the hell no. So, anyway.
Yeah, the snow missed us. We got, we got about 2.5 inches, but compared to Knoxville and over here and all that, it must have somehow missed us. It snowed a lot, but we got some ice underneath it, so we couldn't really leave or go anywhere for a few days.
Right. But
as far as the amount, it wasn't a whole awful lot, but anyhow.
Well, we got that, and then all the ice that came with it, Thank goodness it wasn't one of those big old heavy wet snows,
Yeah, exactly.
It was a real powdery snow, and it was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
But it'd have been dangerous with no power.
Yeah.
For a lot of folks have been in trouble, boy.
Oh, yeah. I swear it. Yeah, I'm just ready for springtime. I hope we don't get another big March ordeal like we do sometimes. I'm just ready for it to warm on up.
Yeah, I'm ready for the red buds to start blooming, and
by the time they do,
and the crappie to start biting.
It'll come frost again.
Oh yeah, it will.
All them old timers, Farmer's Almanac was calling for a big winter, So
oh yeah,
they were right. So, at least for a week.
Well, we hadn't had any real snowfall to mount to anything in
several
quite
years.
some time.
Yeah.
Right.
that I can really remember. You know, when we were kids, we're quite a bit older than you, but
once a year at least.
At least, I mean, we'd always get a good snow, or at least a couple. You know, we'd always get a couple days off from school or something like that. You know, which is always the fun for when you was a kid. But
never got 2 weeks off though.
No, that's for sure.
And they were out. I think they were out 2 weeks on this one.
I remember as a kid, I'd always watch WBIR all night long, waiting for Campbell County to be closed. Just praying as hard as I could to get out of it.
And it was closed a lot. Campbell County got more than we ever did. Back then, anyway.
Now, you grew up in Campbell County.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did. I've been there up until about a little over a year ago when my wife and I moved up to Greenville. So I'd been there all my life up until then. Yeah,
we played a few shows up in Greenville over a couple of years there, and it was really their downtown area and stuff's really nice.
Oh yeah.
From everything they've done a lot of renovation, and what's the big hotel there?
Oh, I'm trying to think of the name of that. I go by it every day, and I can't.
But they got that big stage and everything out back there. We had done a couple of something on the lawn. I can't remember what it was called.
Okay,
something on the lawn. But we played there a couple of years. And
gotcha.
Benny Smith got us the gig up there. Oh, Dr. Smith.
Oh, Dr. Smith. I was just talking to Tony the other day. I think he said him and Benny were planning on going to a good, either a basketball game or something together here before. I believe this week they were planning on doing that.
Nice.
That's a duo right there.
They might be there. They might be going tonight. We're playing here, aren't we?
Tonight?
Yeah.
South Carolina?
Can we play South Carolina here tonight, or are we playing them in South Carolina?
I got the little...
I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
I know it's tonight, but we went down to... I ran into Benny back over the holidays. Here. Is it here? I thought it was. Ran into Benny over the holidays. I hadn't seen Tony in quite a while, but we went down to the station there and did the promotional stuff for the Christmas Spectacular this year.
Nice.
And always fun getting to see Benny. He's such a good interviewer and everything. You know? He's always he always kind of surprises me the direction he comes from on some things, and that's good because it keeps me, I think that helps. But it winds up just kind of being, and maybe because I've known him for so long, but it always kind of winds up just being a conversation, which is really nice. You're not answering all the stupid questions most of them ask you all the time.
Exactly.
What's your biggest blah, 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 blah? Shut up.
I remember an interviewer asked Doyle Lawson one time, he said, so you just won IBMA Vocal Group of the Year, or whatever. And he said, yeah. Well, how'd that make you feel? I thought, could you come up with a little something more than that?
Did Dole have something good for him?
He handled it really well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
But Benny, I remember as a kid, I listened to Benny and Shane Timon and Tony on that Soppin' the Gravy.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was good stuff, man.
It was.
Now, they did that up there at, was it a barbecue joint? Or
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw it live. I know they had a lot of live folks coming in. I know Tony said one time they had the Gillis brothers come up, Larry and John out of Georgia, and I'd like to have been a fly on the wall on that one.
I bet that would have been something.
Oh, yeah.
Those are some characters there.
Them swamp boys now, they're something else.
Swampers. Yeah. Well, you had a little interactions with them over the years and made some music and stuff with them, haven't you?
I have. Yep. I ended up. It was 2008, and I guess I was about 18 or somewhere along in there, and that was really the first, I guess you could say, professional bluegrass job I ever had, and Lord, old Larry Gillis, he'll break you in right. That's for sure. But we
an acorn.
That's right. Yeah, we had a lot of good times. We went out to California and up to Canada, and it was a lot of fun because his brother wasn't playing at the time, so I was playing the guitar and singing the lead, and he was doing all the banjo and tenor and all that, and it was a good wild time. That's for sure.
Well, I was trying to think the other day. I mean, we've known each other forever. I know. I guess kind of though, in a way, it kind of seems like everybody's known you forever because you were out and about as a youngster, and then with DJing and helping Tony and everything on the radio at such an early age. How old were you?
I was 9 years old. Yep.
I wanted to say it, but I was like, sure as I do, it'll be wrong.
It was in February of '99. So I was 9. I was about a month away from turning 10. But anyhow, it was quite the experience. I'd have never dreamed that would have even been a thing. I had my own little radio station set up in my grandparents' basement that I would pretend, that I would sit there and spin records and act like I was either Tony or somebody from DVX. And
that's awesome. I never knew that.
Yeah, I sure did. And then when my papa Scobie took me out, and I got to meet Tony a few times, and which was great. And then he just up and called one day and said, "You want to come in and be a guest DJ one Sunday afternoon?" And so I was jumping for joy, and
that's awesome.
Done that, and then it was about a month later he called and he said, "How would you like to co-host the Bluegrass special every Tuesday night?" So that was my dream gig when I was 9 years old. So I've still doing it to this day, and
how many years now?
This coming February will be 25 years.
Holy cow!
Sure will. They've not ran me off yet.
That's amazing. So you're 34 now?
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
Hey, you didn't think I could do that, did you? I didn't take my shoes off or anything.
I've never been very well in the math department, but you nailed that one.
That's just so crazy. That's just crazy to me because I remember meeting y'all when you were little. There was a whole passel of yous. I mean, my daughter Hannah was younger than you at the time, and I mean, still is. But and then David Smith and what was the it was David and Gina, and then there was Phil and Scotty. They had 2 kids, I believe, as well. Spencer, and seemed like there was a girl.
Meredith,
yeah.
Meredith
right.
Goins, yep.
Yeah.
Yep, did a lot of good picking. She has made a wonderful fiddle player. I've crossed paths a few times, and she's really into that Bobby Hicks stuff and all that. Yeah, she's really made a great fiddle player.
Now, is she still around here, or
I'm not sure. I think she is. I don't know if she's played much in the last couple of years or whatever, but I know she was working with Jeff Brown for a while and a few different bands. But I mean she's on fire on that fiddle. That's for sure. We had a lot of good times when we were kids, and I know I've told you this before, but I'll never forget a jam that it was, I guess, back in the Straight Ahead days.
Yeah. And
jamming at Dumpling Valley. I know David was there and a bunch of folks, and y'all lit into that. I'd like to be a train. And And I guess I was probably about 11 at that time or whatever. Yeah. And I thought, man, this is where it's at right here.
I thought about that song just the other day.
Oh, it was so good. I have it. I wish I had a recording of y'all doing it that night, because I remember I was just in awe, because I'd never heard that song at that time, and I thought, man, alive, I think we were kind of
doing a high lead on it too, maybe.
Yeah, I think y'all put it way up there.
I could sing way up there back then. I still get up there when I need to. I don't visit it much anymore, but if I need to, I can still jump up there a little bit. But one of the biggest things was, but yeah, back then, man, I could sing the ladies' part, as my brother would say. He said, jump up there and sing that woman's part, would you?
That's one thing I always like. I was down at Spigma this weekend, and my buddy Tom Isaacs that I've known for years and years. We played a lot of music together, and we were talking about a guy that lives up near Boone, North Carolina, where Tom and his folks are from up there. Jimmy Trivet, that band Ricochet, you remember back in the 90s?
Yeah, they had that one song.
That My Last Run. And Jimmy had that good high tenor voice.
Yeah.
And Tom said Jimmy came over, and I guess Jimmy's up in his 70s now, and said we were jamming, and Jimmy looked over and he said, well, let's go ahead and do this one here. You get the tenor part, and then I'll get the high part. So, he said whatever that high part was, old Jimmy was raring to get it.
We used to love to, I used to love to sing the, and I know you know him well from up in that area as well, but Tommy Phillips would come around.
Oh, buddy, one of my heroes right there. I love Tommy.
Combing that hair and, you know, that ting in his eye, you know, and he'd start singing some of that Stanley Brothers stuff, and we would sing some of that, and like I said, back then I could really get up there, and we'd do Tommy would do the lead, and Floyd would sing above him, and then we'd put a high baritone on it, you know, like Ralph and George and
Carter and the gang there,
and which is, you know, it's so pretty if it's done well.
Oh yeah,
and it's so different sounding, but that was always I always used to love to get to sing that stuff, and I wasn't very well steeped in that as much as from hearing it from the originals, from like Ralph and them. I had caught covers and things that people had done of those older songs. And it was weird because it was just kind of in that stuff, like all that Osborne Brothers stuff I heard firsthand, you know, and then which had its own interesting harmony.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of the Flat and Scruggs stuff, but the Stanleys, for whatever reason, was always kind of it wasn't foreign. I mean, you knew it,
right?
You know, but it wasn't it wasn't what I really cut my teeth on as far as listening to the original stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, that stuff. I listened to a lot of those records growing up on the turntable. You know, I mean, I know a lot of younger folks nowadays, you know, listen to YouTube and slow things down and this and that. But I remember having all those Stanley records and throwing them on the turntable, and every different record, you know, you'd have to tune your guitar completely different because you never knew what key it was going to be in, or in between or whatever.
Yeah, you know, most of the time back then, whoever sounded closest to being in tune, everybody just tuned to them.
Yeah. Exactly. So you know, might be between G and G sharp or wherever they landed at, you know, and that's how that's kind of how I learned a lot of that music. There was just listening to it on the turntable and playing along with it. And then, as you said, people like Tommy Phillips and all. Yeah. As a kid, getting to be around Tommy and Pitney Sieber and a lot of those guys, they were awesome. I remember
it was the New River Boys.
The New River Boys. Yeah. They were hard to clean after. That's for sure. And I remember it was at the Museum of Appalachia back in, I think it was 03 or 04, along in there. I guess I was around 13, 14 years old. And I remember Tommy coming up to me. I was playing the mandolin at the time and doing some singing, and he looked at me and he says, well, you're doing pretty good. He said, but you need to sing it a little more lonesome. You need to put a little more feeling into it. And I said,
I'm 13.
Yeah. And I said, well, Tommy, how do I go about doing that? And he said, buddy, the best thing I can tell you to do is just imagine one of your loved ones laying in the hospital, drawing their last breath, and you're getting ready to say goodbye to them. And buddy, that right there will make you sing it lonesome every time. So as a 13-year-old, my mouth just kind of dropped, and I was like, wow, now that's some advice right there.
That's where the bear shit hits the buckwheat, ain't it?
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
but I've always remembered that. That's helped me ever since that day, just to keep on plugging. Oh,
I tell you, I laugh at the characters. You know, in bluegrass music, it's I don't know if there's any bigger characters in rock and roll or any other type of music. I've seen more stuff and more things from bluegrass music, good, bad, and indifferent.
Oh yeah,
but I would have just never dreamed.
Right,
I could have seen it at backstage at a rock concert or with how we were raised up and told about rock and roll music and all that stuff, but bluegrass was full of those characters.
Oh, yeah, so many of them.
Enos Johnson was one.
He was. Yeah, I was just talking about him the other day. I remember meeting him several times, and of course he worked, I guess, some with Sonny Osborne and all back in the early 50s. And when Bobby was in Korea, I guess it was.
Yeah.
I know they did a lot of good stuff, and Enos was a part of that. I believe he was in also a band called the Country Partners, I believe. And they made a few sides back then too that a buddy of mine gave me a copy of. But my goodness, old Enos was awesome.
Oh hell, man! I'll tell you, so I ain't seen nothing like it. So you're running up and down the neck of that banjo like a chicken and picking up corn. You shouldn't hold your mouth like that either when you play. We were up there at Dumpling Valley one day, and Enos came walking in, and he had on a red blazer, red sport coat, and his dress blue overalls, a crease in them that cut you.
Wow.
And starched white shirt, white silver hair, just solid white hair, carrying his mandolin case, and he come walking up, and he was getting up there to the end.
Oh yeah.
And I ran over there and I said, let me carry that mandolin for you. I said, come on over here. Our camp's right here. You can sit down here and we'll get you something cold to drink. And so he sat down and he started talking, and all the boys started talking to him. And here, Scobie was probably around. You was probably around. I don't know. It was just kind of that same crew we were just talking about up there. And it was up at Dumpling Valley. And one thing led to another. And somebody said, hey, play that so-and-so, and he got his mandolin out and he started playing and stuff. And I had, at the time, I had a Sigma.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't had a really good guitar still. I was pretty green to playing and singing. I wasn't... being the lead guy, the front man and stuff, I was real new to it, so I didn't know nothing, and I was just excited to learn, and I was probably soaking it in as fast as you was, being that as big as you were, or as small as you were at the time. But I just needed more.
Oh, yeah.
I just needed more. Just give me more. I want to be around it more. I want to do more. I want to learn more. And I'll never forget it. He looked there and he said, what kind of guitar you got there, man? I said, oh, it's just an old Sigma or something like that. And I had seen Marty Stewart out at museum.
Oh, yeah.
And Marty had signed the top of my guitar.
I got it on mine too. That same day.
Yeah. And so he said something about that, and I told him who it was. He couldn't read it. I said, it's Marty Stewart. Oh, yeah. He's a mandolin picker. Playing that mess now, all that rock and roll. And, Marty wasn't playing no rock and roll. But at any rate, I humored the old man. I didn't, I wasn't going to say nothing. I had good manners at least. And,
oh, yeah.
And I started, he picked a little bit of the Jimmy Brown or something, he finger picked a little bit of something on the guitar and handed it back to me. He said, man, that's a good sounding guitar. I said, thanks. And I reached over to get it. And when I did, I I got it in one hand, and I turned around and set my drink down with the other, and I wasn't looking at him. But I could see him out of the corner of my eye, and he looked at somebody that was, I can't remember who it was, sitting next to him. He looked at him and said, "That's the worst damn guitar I ever heard." Just right behind me, right in my face 1 second, right there. I was like, that's grass holes right there, buddy. That's Bluegrass 101 from the old timers, man.
That sounds just like him right there now. I remember, you remember Sunshine Slim.
Yeah.
You see him all the time, and we were down at the Lakeview Inn there off the Caravel exit, and when they used to do the Monday night gig, that's where the first place I ever sung a note on stage at. Joe Isaacs was there that night. I was about, 7, 8 years old or whatever, and I remember getting up and singing the White House Blues, and Joe Isaacs was there, and he had that Stanley Tone banjo, and oh my goodness, it had Ralph's picture painted on the back, and I just remember being just amazed at that thing and seeing the man himself, Joe Isaacs, and all. But we were backstage one of those nights, and I had my little guitar, and Sunshine Slim came up to me, and he strummed out an E chord and did that little bow, 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 bow. He said, "You can't do that on your guitar." And I looked at him, I said, "Well, I think I might be able to." And I did a little thing on it and strummed it down, and he looked at me and he was like, "Well, it still didn't sound as good as my guitar."
I'm telling you, man.
I swear. But there's so many awesome characters around our parts. I feel like we're very privileged to get to be brought up where we've been, and here in East Tennessee, it's just so many good ones that get to come across and hang out with and be mentored to, and all that good stuff,
Yeah, I was real fortunate enough to meet Claude Boone.
Oh, wow.
And was able to, every time I come around, man, there was a little, over here on the highway, probably the way you came in on Asheville Highway, or Andrew Johnson over there. There was a little country store, Robert's Market and Deli. And there's a little country store in the front part of it, and they had a stage and a little thing built in the back, and you'd go by there. I can't even remember what days it was now, but you go over there, kind of like Lakeview. Everybody'd show up, and this is during the daytime, so all the old men having a bologna sandwich. And, and all that stuff, and we'd get in there and play. And I was still playing guitar as my main instrument, but I had just gotten me another banjo, so I was playing five a bunch back then too. And we'd always play, but I never was really good at. I never could play the damn thing and sing at the same time. I don't know if I still could. I probably could do better at it now, but it's like. It just was like I needed to divide my brain in half to be able to do it. So when I see people like you and others that can do it, it's really amazes me. But any rate, long story short, but Claude was there, and I had no idea who Claude Boone was, or what he had written, or what he had done or hadn't done. He's just a nice old man. You know? I didn't know nothing. And I was singing some Jimmy Martin tune, I think, and I had it capoed and on the third fret, was playing out of the D formation, so I was playing an F. Was the only way I knew to play an F. I hadn't started doing the capo aerobics in different shapes and, different strum patterns, different variations and feelings of everything. And I got done playing that song, and Claude stopped me as I was going to the back there one day, and he said, let me show you something. I said, yeah, I'd love to. He said, would you let me show you something? That's what he said. And I said, of course, yeah, I'd love to. I thought, what's this old shit ass? I don't know, this old man. But I said, yeah, sure, I'd love for you to show me something. He said, now, that song you played up there a while back, and I can't remember what it was, but I said, I named the song. He goes, yeah. He said, you do that song again. He said, move that capo down there on the first fret and play out of E. He said, that's the way Lester and Jimmy and those guys did it back then.
Right.
And he said, it gives it a whole different feel. And I thought, wow, I did it right there. I had my guitar with me and I just did it and play. And I was like, oh, wow, he's right. That's the key, but
that's it. Yeah.
But that's how they got that. They got that rhythm, that jingle jangle thing.
Oh yeah.
Especially in the, in like some of those crossover songs that was crossing over to like the country groove, you know, and
exactly.
the rock and roll groove.
Yeah.
And so I worked on it. I went back the next week and told him, I said, boy, that makes all the difference in the world trying to play with those recordings and stuff. He said, yeah. He said, you're a good singer. He said, you need to know stuff like that. And I said, well, I really appreciate you. And he said, you know Fireball Mail? I said, yeah, I know it. He said, sing that one. And I got up there and sang it. And from then on, whatever day it was, I think it was a Thursdays when we met over there, but every Thursday, he'd ask me to sing Fireball Mail every time he seen me.
Nice.
So
I never got to meet Claude, but I've always been a big...
nice fella.
Yeah. I believe he wrote that You Can't Judge a Book by Its Cover, I believe.
Yeah.
And so many great songs. And I love all those recordings of him where he's
credited as writing Wedding Bells.
Oh, yeah.
It's Chapel now.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. And
that was one of those... Arthur Q. Smith. That was one of them that kind of went through in that generation. That who knows? But,
yeah, exactly.
But can't judge a book by its cover.
Oh yeah, and all those great recordings of Carl Story and the Brewster Brothers. And I know Claude played bass on a lot of that stuff there too. And I love those Carl Story recordings. I just found an LP a while back. It was recorded live in a church. And
really?
And it's really neat. It's even got the preacher coming up and doing like a 10-minute sermon on side too. And then the guys get back up and they do Light at the River and all that classic Carl stuff.
Yeah.
And that high tenor, falsetto tenor, that Carl would do.
It was like Hollow Brown or something. I mean, it was way...
It was so awesome to hear. And
then the Bee Gees came.
Yeah, that's right.
It was the same stuff,
That's right. But as far as bluegrass goes, I don't really know who's got the balls to do that nowadays.
Yeah.
That high falsetto. It's always just got me. It gets me in the groove when I hear that. I love hearing that.
I mean, Monroe, about a lot of the stuff he sang was that falsetto,
Oh, yeah.
And where I really excelled in some of my singing was I was in the choral department, so I was getting the proper training and stuff, and I could jump between that falsetto stuff. I mean, a lot of that stuff I was singing that was so high, like that high baritone shit out of E for that Stanley Brothers stuff. Well, God, I'd blow an O-ring trying to hit it real.
Oh, yeah.
But would sing stuff like that in falsetto. We had a Carl Story record growing up. We had 3 records growing up. We had I did
3.
Yeah, it's the only ones I can remember, other than like my brother's church quartet. But we had a Merle Haggard record.
That's all you needed.
And and we had Flatt and Scruggs from Carnegie Hall.
Oh yeah.
And then we had Carl Story and the Ramblin' Mountaineers. And it was the one that had the mocking banjos on it.
Oh goodness!
Yeah.
That's the one right there from 56 or 57, I think.
I guess so.
Cut that. Did it also have Light at the River on it? The original cut of that on it?
It's been,
because I think that was one of the first few ones that Carl did with the Brewster Brothers there.
And that was my introduction to bluegrass, because I used to work at Pick and Grin with Bud.
They were they were either in red jackets or red pants.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Across the front with the yellow borders.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember. I just know that mocking banjos, because that's what. When I heard it, that's what inspired me. I was like, oh, man, I really like the banjo.
Wasn't that banjo and mandolin on that?
I believe it was.
Yeah, because it was Bud and Willie G going back and forth on that. And I know there's that album where they do "You Don't Love God If You Don't Love Your Neighbor," around 60 or so, and Bud Brewster was playing a Bacon and Day banjo on that, and that thing, golly, it sounded so good. And last I talked to him, he said he sold it to somebody, and I think we tried to track it down, but I think it's somewhere out in California nowadays. But if I could ever get my hands on that banjo that Bud played on that Carl record, I'd give just about anything for it, because I mean, Bud just
Bacon and Day. I never heard of it.
Yeah, it's a dandy banjo. I don't know how many of them they made, but anyway, he said I think he traded it off sometime in the late 60s or whatever. And a buddy of mine did a lot of tracking and found it, and it was for sale out in California about 5 years ago. And obviously somebody bought it. But we believe that was the one that Bud had. But Bud's always been a big hero of mine too. I mean, he was just, or still is. I mean, I talk to him on the phone every now and then. For his age, he's very tech savvy. He'll text and everything. He is awesome. He's always been a big hero of mine.
Jamie worked for Bud for a long time.
And he grew. My dad grew up down the road from him. When they lived in Vonore.
Okay.
And he knew my granddaddy down there. And then when I went to work, I didn't know that when I went to work there. And then we just started talking, and I went into that thinking that, these rock and rollers were the hellraisers of the music industry too. And I learned really damn quick that was not the case.
Well, it's a part of that whole good, bad, and indifferent I was talking about earlier. Those some characters.
And it was mostly the people that came in, it was a revolving door, people trying to come in and see him, and some he wanted there and some he didn't. And so that was my introduction to that. And then of course Paul was around some. That was pre-Ricky, but right before that. So those Paul was so good on those Knoxville Grass recordings, and then obviously with the Osbournes for a long time. Another powerhouse vocalist right there. I've always loved Paul.
And to get to study under them.
Oh, yeah.
Under Bobby and Sonny.
Yeah.
I mean, Sonny's not ever really credited that much for... You don't think of Sonny that much as being the vocalist that he is.
Oh, yeah.
The part singer, and because of all that... because of the way they structured their singing with the high lead and then putting the parts underneath that, you know. Completely opposite
of what like the Stanleys. Yeah.
And then those two bottom parts, the baritone, and it would be basically a first baritone and a second baritone, or a first tenor and a second tenor, or however you wanted to categorize it. But they would cross and do all kinds of, where you think it was going, it went there, but the other guy was hitting that note and the other guy was hitting the other note.
Right. One that I always think of talking about that is that when the Stanleys did On a Lonesome Night.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess it was, I believe it was Curly Lambert was doing the middle part in there with him with Ralph and Carter. And when Carter comes in on that lead note on the chorus, he shoots up and hits that tenor note, and then Curly Lambert jumps down and hits the lead note, and they just the whole time are just crisscrossing while Ralph's up there hitting the high baritone. Yeah. And I've showed that to so many people, and a lot of people, listen to it. Well, no, that's not what's happening. They're all doing it straight across, but if you listen to it, they crisscross a bunch on those harmonies. Yeah,
and somebody else that did it, the Luvens did it a lot.
Yes, oh yeah,
a lot. That was I think there was a few things in the Everly Brothers as well.
Yeah.
That you could hear those little differences, and for whatever it was, it still just made all the difference in the world. You know?
Definitely.
But I was definitely a big fan of that stuff. I hadn't the Flight and Scruggs stuff, but mine came through You know who really turned me, and I never told you this, but we've talked about it here before, but who really turned me on to the bluegrass, of what I really dove into was Johnny Miller.
Oh, yeah.
And I was leading singing at a church, and our piano player had left. Well, I had gotten volunteered into this position, basically.
Right. That happens a lot in that circle.
Yeah. And so I didn't have any accompaniment, and
right.
we could have done it a cappella. I could read music and knew the keys and could go over there and hit the note if I needed to, but I had met Johnny and heard him play guitar one day, and I was just like, oh, shit, I ain't never heard nobody play guitar like that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was playing all that. I didn't know who Tony Rice was.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And so anyway, he really turned me on to that stuff. So when I started hearing that, the first CDs that I got that I really started listening to was every one of the Bluegrass Album Band CDs.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I learned.
Uh-huh.
And that's where my desire really, I heard it growing up and stuff, and I liked it, but that's what caught me.
Yeah, exactly.
That stuff caught me, and I just was like, oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah. And those guys were, they were very, very close, and you could tell they'd listened to the original a whole bunch. They really did all those songs justice. And, a powerhouse group of bluegrassers right there.
Oh, man, and the harmonies and just the instrumentation, JD played stuff that just sounded like you should just be able to do it.
Oh, yeah.
It sounded like so anything effortless. That was so simple.
Yeah.
And you'd start working on licks and trying to do that stuff, and you'd just be like, how does he do that?
Yeah, exactly.
That double thumb thing, like You Don't Know My Mind and stuff like that. Any rate, that's what sucked me in.
Oh, yeah.
And when I started listening to that, that's when I just put the banjo away and got a guitar. I was I know I can sing and play guitar. I'm not very good, but I can at least do both of them and work on it and try to get better. And that's, Johnny was the one that started me out.
Speaking of great guitar players too, one that I always looked up to was old Luke Brandon around here. Golly, at all the music he knew. And I've been told this, I've not actually looked it up, but I was told that was Luke playing the lead guitar on Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, Brenda Lee. Because I know
maybe
he worked with Brenda for about 6 months. And she wanted to keep him full time or whatever. But the story I was told, he just, after about 6 months, he said, I've had enough of it. I'm just ready to go back to East Tennessee. And I guess he's always been that way. Just, didn't really want to travel. But I was told that was him playing that kickoff to Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. I need to look that up for sure. But but it wouldn't surprise me one bit. He could do it all.
He was so... is he still living?
No, I think he passed a few years ago, but he lived way up in his 90s, I know.
He was I remember the first time I ever seen him or met him, I'd go out to Ciderville every once in a while, and that's where I bought that Sigma that Enos loves so much.
Right.
And, but I'd go out there and I'd look at all the different, you know how you do when you're a kid. You're just like, oh, man, boy, that's a nice one. I bet that one sounds good. And it probably was the worst one in the place. But I would play what little bit of stuff I could do. And he was out there one day.
Okay.
And he was just so unassuming.
Yeah.
His look, his demeanor.
Oh, yeah.
Just everything was just like, if you see, you might have thought he was just some old guy that was just there.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't have a lot or didn't, just very unassuming.
Exactly.
You couldn't. And I was playing, I'd picked up some electric guitar one day, and I was fooling around with it, and I never played electric. I never knew, I knew my dad played with a couple of guys that, one guy in particular had one of those huge hollow body Gibsons,
wow.
Just the giant ones. Like Hank Thompson, one of those giant fucking guitars.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just gold heart. I mean, just so.
Oh, yeah.
Just so. And I was trying to play something, and he said, let me show that to you. And he just picked it. And, dude, I started asking him about lessons and stuff, and he started talking to me about chords and theory and stuff. Well, I had a knowledge for the theory end of it, and I could talk with him and understand what he was talking about. But and he just went from the 12th fret all the way down to the nut. And just played all these different, just
mesmerizing.
Yeah, chord after chord, and then you can do this, and you can bring it back, and then and all finger picking everything. It was just really amazing guitar player.
Yeah.
So I looked it up.
And he was so good I didn't go take lessons. Like the dummy I was.
I'd have been the same way. I swear. I don't even know if it's hard to be in the same room with him. As soon as I see him walk through the door, it's like
over.
That's the man,
Yeah.
But and speaking of Luke too, just a little funny measure too. I've never in my life seen anybody that can smoke as many cigarettes as Luke did, but never buy the first pack. It seems like people would almost be in line to give him one. Everywhere he went, I swear. Old Luke.
So that was recorded. "Rocking Around the Christmas Tree" was cut in '58. And on guitars, Hank Garland.
Oh, it was Hank.
And
okay.
Harold Bradley.
Okay.
But, Kramer played piano, Boots Randolph was on sax. It was an all-star cast, but still.
Oh, yeah. Because I think it was that same year. Somebody was telling me it was the same year that was recorded that he went on the road with her. So I guess he might have played it live during the same time. But the record,
was, yeah.
Golly, Hank Garland, speaking of, that was another dandy one right there.
Yeah.
But
Grady Martin.
Oh, yeah. Now, was it on the original El Paso? Was that Grady or was that Hank?
That was Grady Martin.
Okay, because I've seen that Grady was credited for it, but I've heard a lot of people say that they got the credits wrong and that it was Hank that played on that particular one. But I've never been able to.
I don't know. I've always heard it was Grady.
Yeah, that's.
I know when he got inducted in the Hall of Fame. You're able to. I got to make sure I say this right. I don't know if they're asked or somebody is asked or somebody asks a performer to do one of like a song that they were known for or one of their songs at the deal. And Marty was asked to do, they were asked for the Superlatives to do one for Grady Martin. And they picked El Paso.
Okay.
So that's...
Well, that must be... That's probably...
That's as close as I can go. Yeah. That's as close as I know as far as... if that guy does it,
right?
It's probably the deal.
The deal,
but,
yep.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but
right. Yeah, those guys, and all the session players back in those days on the guitar, Hank and Grady, and then you got all the fiddle players like Tommy Jackson and Del Potter and all those guys.
Yeah.
Golly, they could cut some records.
Yeah.
And not only were they good, but they were inventing that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
As they went.
Like that Del Potter, a lot of that, you talk about double stops and him throwing triple stops in on half of that stuff. And John Rigsby, that, he played several years with Dr. Ralph and then with Ralph too. And I spent quite a few years with him on the road, and he loved Del Potter. And his fiddle, he's got a 5-string fiddle, but he said the trick to it is getting a flat bridge to put on that fiddle so you can hit triple stops.
Oh, really?
So most of them, are rounded.
Yeah.
But he had one precisely made for triple stops, and he had it on. He said, this is one like Del Potter had.
Man.
And he could just throw them right in there. It's hard to do.
I'll tell you something. That boy can play.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a damn singer.
Oh, yeah.
God almighty. I mean, Jamie's got a story about him.
About John?
Yeah. And he probably don't even know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, dude, the guy does.
I think we've talked about it before, and I was like,
Fraulein.
oh, that's Alex's buddy.
Fraulein.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, folks, if you're looking for a cool, eclectic place with an outside patio, plenty of UT sports games, cold beer, and live music on the weekends, then look no further than one of our homes away from home, Trailhead Beer Market, located at 1317 Island Home Avenue in South Knoxville, Tennessee. Trailhead is South Knoxville's first beer market, situated on the banks of the Tennessee River and in the backyard of the Urban Wilderness and Iams Nature Center. You can find more info on Facebook and Instagram about specials, live acts, and the goings-on, and be sure to tell them McGill and Jamie sent you, and have one more for the good guys.
We got some tickets. A friend of mine couldn't go to Doyle Lawson, and this was recent. Well, in the last 10 years, you know. A buddy of mine and I went, and he was there with Ralph too, or I guess, or whoever he was with. And
it'd been two.
He stole the damn show, man.
Oh,
I mean, my God. I mean, he can play. When he did that song, the whole place, just like the wind, got sucked out of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
and Doyle's, you know, they opened, and Doyle's band was good. Really, almost too good.
You know, was that at the Bijou? Is that where that was? I remember playing with two, and we opened up for Doyle one night at the Bijou about 6 or 7 years ago.
It would have been it. I think it was the Bijou. I wanted to say Tennessee, but I think it was the Bijou.
Yeah, and I remember that John a lot of times would sing Fraulein, and then a lot of times he'd do an a cappella in the show too, and he was, you know, grew up with all the primitive Baptist style, you know, all the lining songs out and everything, and my goodness, he knows that stuff inside and out. We would sit on the bus, and he would literally, you know, he would have his hymnal that he'd bring a lot of times. He'd sit there and he'd say, now I'm going to line this out, you jump and get tenor and hear the words, and he taught me so much about that old style of singing, and I mean he knows it inside and out.
Well, you're good at it too. It doesn't sound put on. It sounds natural, and you can tell that you've studied it.
I love it.
It's something that was in you too. You know,
right? I've always loved that style, and John was a very good mentor as far as how to go about a lot of that. And
I booked you all in a gig down there at Barley's one time.
Oh yeah,
when John was, you were still playing with him.
Yep.
Or y'all had put something together. I think.
Yep, I remember that. We had, I believe, my buddy Joe Rose played with us that night.
I think that's right. He played 5, didn't he?
Yep. And I believe we might even had Roscoe with us that night. Roscoe Morgan, I believe he came in.
Might have, yeah.
And sang with us too.
That's right.
But yeah, old John, he's a dandy. All the Rigsbys are top notch. As far, you know, his first cousin Don is a great singer as well. But
I heard him doing a song the other day. You might have played it. Might have been on the way into work, but golly, what was it? It was familiar. It was a country song.
Was it Misty?
Yes.
Yeah. He just recorded that. Don did a while back, and a pretty cool version of that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
One of the coolest covers that I've heard and I heard from your show was God, come on, brain, you can do it. It was when Jack Cook had a solo record, and he came out with oh God, what was it? Did he do a Del Reeves tune?
He did North to Alaska.
Alaska.
Johnny Horton tune. I was trying to think if there
was it.
There might have been another one he did on that album.
I can't believe I've just
North
blanked.
to Alaska. I know on that album he did Let's All Go Down to the River. Trying to think if there was another country-oriented tune on that album. Speaking of Speaking of Jack Cook, a quick little story about Jack. I remember seeing him because that album came out, I believe, in 2006. So I couldn't wait to get it. You know, it's the first solo Jack Cook record. I couldn't wait for it, and I was going to be seeing Ralph and all of them at Jerusalem Ridge up in Rosine, Kentucky there. And I saw him somewhere a few months before that. And Jack, he told me, I asked him, I said, I do a radio show. Is there any way I could get a copy of your album when it comes out? And he said, yeah, buddy, I'll get it right for you. Yeah, you just come up and see me and I'll set you right up. Well, I see him at Rosine and he had just released that album. Yeah. And I walked up to the table and I asked Jack, I said, I met you, a while back and I do a radio show. I'd love to get a copy of your album if you'd be willing or whatever. Yeah, buddy, I'd give you one if I had any, but I'm all sold out. I ain't got a single one. And I looked over and there's a whole box full of them sitting right over there on the edge of the table. And I said, well, Jack, I said, how much are they? And he said, I usually charge $20 for them. I said, well, I'll be glad to pay you for it. And I brought out a 20 and he said, well, let me look around here. And he said, oh, yeah, here's one right here. Oh, yeah, that'll work.
Here's 200 of them. Oh, shit. Oh, hell. Maybe it was North Alaska. I think it was.
He was a dandy. I love Jack.
Yeah. Yeah. That stage show was always great. There's one with him and Ralph, and it's famous. I mean, it's on YouTube, I think, but it was live up from Kentucky somewhere, but it was televised. It was
with Keith Whitley and
Keith,
back in the 70s.
And had Curly Ray Klein on the fiddle. Boy, I love that shit now.
Oh, that's as good as it gets.
You talking about entertaining? It was just so it was just hokey enough that you knew it wasn't an act.
Yeah. It was the real deal.
It was,
I know Ralph too told me several years ago a great Curly Ray Klein story. He said back when he was Ralph too, I guess it was in the early 80s, and two was 7-8 years old, going on the road with Dr. Ralph and all of them, and said they pulled into a truck stop or somewhere, and he said, Curly Ray asked Ralph too, he said, go in there and get me a Dr. Pepper and some peanuts. And so two said, sure, I'll go get them for you there. And he said, Curly Ray always liked to put them peanuts down in his pop, and drink them. And he said, so I went in there and I got to looking around.
That's a big Texas thing too, by the way.
Oh,
if you didn't know. Dr. Pepper specifically.
Oh, yeah.
With
Waco,
the peanuts.
Texas. Yeah.
Well, he didn't. Curly Ray didn't quite get the peanuts he wanted. Ralph too said he went in there and got to looking. He said he saw a little thing of Epsom salts, and he said, "I'm gonna play a little trick on Curly Ray." He said, "So I bought that Dr. Pepper, and he said I just poured it full of Epsom salts."
Oh no!
He said I brought it out to the bus, and he said Curly Ray opened her up, and he said I already put it all in there for you. It's good to go. And said he turned it up and took about 4 gulps of it. And he set it down. He looked over straight at me, and he said, I'll be damned, that's Epsom salts. And he said, I started laughing, and Curly Ray looked around. He turned her right back up and finished.
Oh, Lord. God.
He said, "Two, I'm going to kill you for that."
Oh, how funny.
Oh, Lord.
On that video, he does the old Pikeville jail.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a dandy right there.
He pull them pants up. That bow.
Oh, yeah. Dandy stuff right there.
Well, who turned you on to the bluegrass music? Was it Scobie?
Pretty much. He had in 1995, they got their first computer, my grandparents. Scobie had it. And so it was Windows 95 and the Encarta 95, the CD-ROM encyclopedia disc came with that. So as a kid, I was about 5 or 6, playing. I was on that Encarta, just searching through everything, and came across music, listened to all different kinds of music, and I clicked on bluegrass. And at this time, I'd heard people like the Isaacs and a few things here and there. And he had a lot of country records, a lot of Merle Haggard and Statler Brothers,
local
and this
stuff, because it was and still is, I imagine. In that area, that was kind of a mainstay was the bluegrass music.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd never really, dug into bluegrass. I didn't really know much about it at the time. And so I was on that in Carta 95 and came across bluegrass, and it said, here's a 30-second sample of bluegrass music. So I clicked on it, and it was the 30-second clip was a live recording of Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys doing the White House Blues in the 50s. Yeah. And when I heard that fast, the high vocal of Bill and that mandolin and the banjo just dried. I said, my goodness, it changed my life. I said, this is what I want to do right here.
Really?
And, yeah.
You knew that?
And I couldn't wait. And up until then, I'd been around my grandparents a whole lot. My parents both, they none of them really listened to bluegrass. Mom listened to country, and Dad was a big, Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue fan,
right.
So I heard a lot of that with them. But with my grandparents, I heard a lot of the popular music of the 50s and 60s. So I heard Beach Boys, and become really interested in Brian Wilson and all that good music too. Yeah. So that was I heard that even before bluegrass. And so that kind of music there, listening to Brian Wilson and a lot of that Sam Cooke and all the music that came out in those days are right up there with bluegrass for me. Yeah. I just absolutely love it. But that was the first time I heard bluegrass and what got me into it. And so anyway, we went to Walmart at the time. They were obviously still selling cassettes at that time. So we ended up buying like a Bill Monroe greatest hits or whatever, and so that tape stayed in the truck for a long time. So every time me and Paps would ride around, we'd have either Bill Monroe or Hank Sr. or whatever playing, and he loved all that too. And so that's kind of how it all came about. So your grandparents were both of them were just music lovers. Oh yeah. Scobie and then and my grandmother Deanna, they love that kind of music. And then my other set of grandparents also same way loved the old rhythm and blues and pop music of the 50s and 60s and all that. And I still go up every time I see I'll go up to Campbell County and stay a weekend. My wife and will stay with my grandparents, and they love to fix them a good mixed drink and go out on the back porch and play music trivia with the oldies. And we'll sit there and try to pick each other's brains. And we always have a good time, and
that's good.
Listening to all that music. And it's always fun to reminisce on that good stuff that came out back in those days.
Well, it just shows everybody normally that I don't know normally, but a majority of the folks that have been on here have always, musicians or singers have always had a really wide, eclectic taste of stuff that they loved. You know, everything from Van Halen to whatever.
Right.
And I know growing up, when I finally got my first, stereo and stuff in my room, that was my safe space to be able, and then I got a car. And then that was a game changer.
Oh yeah.
Because you could listen to anything and everything you wanted to.
Oh yeah.
And we came up in the 80s of the MTV era.
Oh yeah.
So there was so much. I mean, we were just trying to drink from a water hose.
Oh yeah.
With all the stuff that was coming out. And it was from one end of the spectrum to the next. You had the new wave stuff, you had the bar scene stuff, you had the pop stuff, you had the rap stuff. I mean, and all of it was just, it was just made you a fan. You just wanted to get all of it you could get.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I've always been. I mean, I know in the bluegrass world, a lot of folks, are just strictly bluegrass no matter what. And as much as I love it, I love just, there's so much good music out there. There's, so many good artists, and I'd hate to just only listen to one genre of that when you've got so much to dig into and learn from and be inspired from,
Absolutely. And to draw from and to create your own style with.
Exactly.
It was always important. I had everything from Louis Armstrong to the Kentucky Headhunters to Hugh Lewis and the News to LL Cool J to just everything. Beastie Boys. Everything, and it was just a ZZ Top and of course Van Halen and all the, the hair metal. There's just everything. But
that music was great. Tears for Fears.
And growing up, we never really had a whole lot of music playing in the house, but my dad played. So it was I'd always hear him sing these old songs, and I never knew who did them. And that was part of when Johnny turned me on to Bluegrass Album Band, it was part of that was I'd hear songs that I heard my dad do. I'd be like, oh, I didn't realize that was, and then I'd look at the notes and the liner note and figure out, oh, that's Flight and Scruggs. Oh, that was Reno and Smiley. Oh, that was this guy. This was this. And of course, I'd ask my dad, and be like, that song, Think I'll Go Across the Ocean If I Don't Change My Note, Oh, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. And it was always my dad. He was always, I think so, or maybe, It's like, come on, man, pick one or the other. But that was him. But anyway, I'd be like, was that a Flight and Scruggs song? I don't know. Maybe. Might have been. I don't know.
So you never could get an answer out.
No, but I guess it was a good thing in a lot of ways because it made me search, it made me dig, it made me try to get more and try to find other stuff,
Right. What got you into as far as starting a band and like the Straight Ahead and a lot of the bluegrass music? Because I know you guys played for several years together, and like I say, when I was a kid, I just absolutely loved hearing your music. Like I say, I've told you this before too, but that Tennessee Mountain Home that you wrote, it's one of my favorites as well. And
I appreciate that.
And you guys just, I loved what y'all did. How did that come about?
Well, I was just going everywhere I could, doing anything I could to, after hearing Bluegrass Album Band. And then I'd learn the songs, I'd learn a few, the such stuff that fit me.
Right.
Stuff that I could grab a hold of well enough to do in the simplest, because I wasn't going to be Tony Rice. I had no desire to flat pick. I know who I am. I'm not going to do that shit. I'm not going to sit in woodshed for 37 hours to get a triplet right. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I'm not. And it just never, it appealed to my ear, but it never appealed to what I wanted to do. I wanted to be peanut butter and jelly. I wanted to play and sing.
Yeah.
So that really is what did it. I mean, as far as playing, as far as wanting to go further. And then, my dad took me like up to Rocky Branch, and I was going through a divorce. And music was the only thing that was constant.
Right.
That I could, which it, then I was just dumb enough I didn't realize it, but it had been that way my whole life. I mean, every elective I could take from the time I was old enough to the time I graduated was always music. Yeah. Something of some kind. Yeah. Whether it be band, choir, singers, whatever it was, handbells, theory, any of it. I wanted to do it all. And so I think that's what really, it was something that was constant, and it was something that I could do. And it was something as whether I was playing it or whether I was singing or if I was just listening, I wasn't thinking about everything I was going through. Right. Because you got to think, growing up, I never had a friend that had a divorced parent. I'm 52 years old. So that was virgin territory for me, so to speak, of going through it myself. And I was just like, and I was ashamed a lot, and I was upset and angry.
It's such a common thing nowadays, but go rewind a little bit. It was very not common back a few years ago.
Absolutely. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And we'd go to different things, and I would play with my dad and play with some of the old timers and different things. And then one day I was and I was a good singer, and I knew parts because I was trained with it, and I could listen to that stuff and I could pick it out. Yeah. And I would sing. That was part of my vocal exercises, was learn the parts and sing all of them. Yeah. With the cassette. Exactly. In the car, with whatever. And so just being green and eager and wanting more, I would go to these things, and I knew I could sing that part that they were missing in that jam. Yeah. And I just squeeze in there and without being rude or intrusive and start singing. Right. Well, there was a lot of that was good, and I got welcomed into a lot of it, but I got shunned a lot too. Oh yeah, because I was better than they were, and there's a bunch of jealous assholes. Oh yeah, you get that a lot. Yeah, that's for sure. And I was naive or young to it enough that I didn't see it happening. I didn't know what was going on. Right. So one night we're up at Rocky Branch, and I hear this banjo playing. And I'm like, holy shit, that sounds like banjo on the recordings. Yeah. And then I'd hear him do a backup, or I'd hear him, doing the chop, or he'd be going back from a G shape to an F shape to a D shape on the backup stuff, like the Scruggs stuff, know. Yeah. And I was like, I gotta find that. I gotta find where that's at. And I finally followed my ears, and I found Marvin Gideon and Floyd Bailey. Oh wow. I tell you. And they were singing, I think Marvin was singing something like Redwood Hills, and I never heard any of that stuff before. Country Gentleman. I didn't know shit about Country Gentleman. I didn't know Sick 'em from Go about a lot of it, because I was literally 23, 25, and I was as young as you were. I was getting it all at the same time, really, Exactly. So I found Marvin and Floyd and Mickey McNabb and Teresa, Floyd's wife, was playing bass, and they just sounded so good, and they were playing. Just what they were playing was just different, and they were playing it different, and not. I guess the best way to describe it was it sounded like the recordings. Oh yeah. The taste, the inflections, the little things, and it just stood out head and tails above everything. Yeah. And they were singing something, and Floyd just kind of looked at me and he said, come on in here. And I said, I heard you sing a while back. And said, sing that part on that. And I can't even remember what it was now, but it was some song. And man, I reared back and hammered it. Belted it. Yeah. I was all amped up and nervous, and we just became buddies. That's awesome. We just became buddies, and I miss Marvin so much. Being around and, like you say, soaking everything up I could. I always loved watching Marvin and Floyd and all you guys, for sure. Marvin was a good guy. I didn't know what he lacked in some of the physical skills, or his ability of his picking, what his limitations, his talent. Right. Being young and dumb, I didn't realize that's what your talents were, is your limitations, and what you could do without them. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Oh yeah. And I wish I'd have known more back then, but Marvin was always one to show me chords. Yeah. And, said, no, now that right there, it needs to go to here. And it's a quick thing, and you'll miss it. And most all these other assholes out here trying to do this, they'll miss that part, Right. And, he really showed me a lot. Oh, yeah. And, of course, Floyd was just And in their own different ways, they were both just motivators.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And an ally.
Oh yeah,
if you will, and would take the time. There wasn't a stupid question.
Yeah.
Now they might rag your ass on something.
Oh yeah.
But that also taught you how to be one of the boys.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and that's a part of that life, if you're going to do it, that you got to know how to do.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So it was a real good thing, and it was just one of those deals. Mickey, they wanted to do a little bit more, and Mickey was playing guitar and singing for him at that time, and with his job, he couldn't do all the stuff that they wanted to do. So I just started doing a few things here and there, and then the next thing, it was like, hey, let's go up and play so and so.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I found myself on the stage.
Oh yeah,
stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know. Like I say, and every time I go up and hang with the grandparents or whatever, and we listen to music, we always ask the question, because it the answers always vary from week to week. But like your 5 favorite singers of all time.
Yeah.
Do you have 5 you could name off right now, or
yeah,
in any kind of music?
Probably. I mean, if we're talking out of anything,
yeah.
Man,
you got this. Come on,
it's tougher than you think.
No, I know. I can definitely bullshit my way through it, but I want to be as honest as I can too. But
I know who my 5 are.
Merle Haggard's got to be one.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to me, he is the epitome. He is the fucking blueprint of singer-songwriter.
Pitch perfect.
Perfect.
Anything you hear, he had it.
You asked George Jones who the best singer in country music was, and it was Merle Haggard.
Oh yeah. That's what
I
Ralph.
have that from Good Records.
Yeah, that's what Ralph too told me one time when George and Dr. Ralph were doing a recording session together in the early 90s. Ralph too always loved George Jones, as we all did, and he said, I got to be in the studio there, and he came in and I just looked up at him and I said, you're the best singer I've ever heard. And he said, George looked down at me and he said, no, son, your daddy's one of the best singers I've ever heard. I thought that was a pretty cool deal.
Yeah,
two was probably
cool.
12 or 13, but that's pretty cool. But
knowing George through some other people that really, really knew him well, that worked with him, he probably wasn't smart enough to make it up.
Yeah.
He probably meant it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that even, you think about it that way, and it's like, it's really cool.
Yeah.
To give back. But I think Haggard would have to be, he might be number 1.
Oh yeah.
I'm really a fan of Dean Martin.
Oh yeah.
Is a tremendous singer that doesn't get, he gets some of the accolades. I think Sinatra gets them more.
Yeah.
But
ain't that a kick in the head?
Yeah, ain't that a kick in the head? And probably somebody that people would think, probably Willie Nelson.
Oh yeah.
Willie's a tremendous singer.
Oh yeah. So original, and so it's
a stylist,
Yes.
It's almost like Sparks.
Yeah.
He's a stylist. It's there's a whole word meant for him.
Yeah.
So those 3, I would imagine, for sure. Somebody else that was a really tremendous singer would be, you got to think about the females too.
I know. It's.
you know, I mean, I don't know if I've ever heard anything sweeter or prettier than Blue Kentucky Girl by Loretta Lynn.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's so much as from her to just the recording, but then you got Patsy too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be definitely 3. What about you guys? I need to wrap my brain around my last 2 because I'm running out of spots.
Well, Merle Haggard's number 1 for me.
Yeah.
Just period. I think that I mean, we already said enough about it, but I think that for me, Ray Charles has got to be.
Oh fuck!
No,
think about him.
It's the more everybody else starts naming, and you're like, oh damn, why didn't I?
Yeah, I know it.
I think
like,
Ray is probably the greatest male singer, popular singer that I've ever heard. I mean, we got recordings from 40s, late 40s, early 50s. I mean, that guy never saw a pitch correction in his life.
Didn't need it. And so Haggard and him, and then Sinatra, not because he's the best vocalist, but because he's got the most character. He got by with a lot. I mean, it's like you compare him to like Bublé. Bublé's a better singer, technical singer, but Sinatra's got all this character in his voice.
The charisma about it, yeah.
It's just like, I mean, if you ever get an opportunity to listen to, it's on YouTube.
The presence.
Yeah, listen to him sing Send in the Clowns on YouTube. Change your life. You will be like, holy God. So those 3, Aretha for sure. I've been listening to a lot of Aretha lately since we were talking about Stax. And so those 4, and then my 5. God, that's hard. But maybe Otis.
Oh, yeah.
Otis Redding.
Yeah, I just, like These Arms of Mine, man, that song is just.
Oh. And then you think about guys like Fats, or you think about guys you think about guys like Jackie Wilson.
He said it best. It changes every time.
If you ask me tomorrow, it'll be different than what it was today. It just, there's
David Ruffin.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Cooke.
Even Jimmy Ruffin.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ruffin was awesome, too. And Sam Cooke, my goodness. I'm sitting here trying to think because I asked this question, and I've been racking my brain.
You're on the clock.
I don't even know if I can
started
even
this
start.
Mess.
But I don't know. I would say I'd have to throw, as far as what I like in the bluegrass style of things, I would probably have to say Ralph. Because, I just love his mountain style, or whatever. Number 2, I might say maybe Bobby Darin. I really liked Bobby Darin's stuff. Beyond the Sea and golly,
Gone
Dream
Too
Lover.
Soon, man.
All that was great. I'd also say Larry Henley. Are y'all familiar with Larry Henley?
Mm-mm.
He was the guy that sang the high part on Bread and Butter. I like Bread and Butter. I like Toast and Jam with the new beats.
Mm-hmm.
He had I've got a lot of solo records of his, and he does a lot of that falsetto style, but he had so much control over it. And he went later on, about 10 years after Bread and Butter came out in the 60s, he wrote Wind Beneath My Wings.
Really?
Sure did.
Boy, that made him a little change.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Holy cow!
So he's one that I've always loved. It's a little lesser known, of course. But if you mention Bread and Butter, everybody knows that for sure. But I loved his singing and golly, that's 3, I guess. And on the country side of things, I don't know. The Singing Sheriff was always a favorite of mine. Fair and Young.
Yeah,
I liked a lot of his stuff. As you said, Merle, goodness, hard to beat. And I haven't even got to the female side yet.
Yeah.
I would probably say 5 would tie. And I really liked Skeeter Davis's singing an awful lot.
Yeah.
Skeeter Davis and maybe Leslie Gore might be a tie for 5.
It's My Party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of for my 5 might be a little weird for the night, but it's,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that can, it's you just about have to like name them from different genres.
Yeah,
almost,
exactly.
Like
Benny King. Gosh, I should have threw Benny in there.
Benny King and what was the guy that did the come on. I just seen his name today. Bill Withers.
Oh yeah.
Shit.
Oh yeah.
Don Rich. There's another one.
I didn't even mention Brian Wilson because obviously he pretty much taught the boys everything on the vocal side and arranged it all.
There's like Willie and Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
These guys that are just on a different planet.
I mean, you think about guys like Don Henley.
Oh yeah.
I always like Peter Cetera.
Peter Cetera was an incredible
Chicago.
singer.
I thought Roger McGuinn was an awful good one too, with the Birds and a lot of the stuff he did. I liked his singing a lot.
Levon Helm, I love his singing.
Oh yeah,
Levon, man. Rick Danko, was a real singer. So rough around the edges, but had that presence.
Yeah,
that it's like that. Back during when the pandemic first happened, I was here a lot and out here a lot when I was building this thing, and I was getting a few texts from different buddies saying, "Hey, check this guy out," or "Check this gal out," check this out, and that culture wall.
Oh yeah,
Jesus bless America, the presence.
Yeah.
I listened to him sing that cowpoke. I bet to God, I don't know how much vodka I drank out here and got drunk and listened to that stuff. And was just like, it was just bigger than life. The persona, the presence.
Oh, yeah.
It was like Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash wasn't a great singer.
Character.
But that presence, that character, that, you can't tell me you can't listen to Ira Hayes or the Man in Black and not just...
And I
want to cry or think that might be the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. I've always even been told too that Johnny was just, he was a good guy to go along with it. And a lot, everybody loved him. I read, have you read Charlie Louvin's book?
I have not.
I was reading it and he said back in the early 60s, they were playing somewhere, he and Ira and don't know what happened, but they didn't get paid that night for the gig, and they didn't have enough money to get to their next gig. 3-4 hours up the road. Said Johnny just handed them $1,500. Said, "Here y'all go." He said, "I know y'all are having a rough time, and anything I can do to help." And just gave it to him. Said, "I don't want it back. Just take it and do whatever you need to do." And Charlie said that Johnny was just a top-notch guy.
I've heard that.
Had a big heart,
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too. That whole thing with him, with that, have you guys seen that Netflix deal, the Tricky Dick and the Man in Black?
I've watched a little bit of that, yeah.
I don't know if that's the correct title, but it's something like that. But how he handled that.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen it yet.
You're talking about, he was asked to come sing at Nixon's inaugural dinner, and he agreed, and he was laying his stuff out, or his set list out, and he gets a call from Nixon to come to the White House that they want to talk, and he's instructed that he's going to play this certain song. He wants him to play this certain song. I can't remember the name of it. You have to go do some homework, watch it yourself. But he said, "Okay, what's the song?" And he told him, and it was this old song that was just racist as hell from the 40s or something, or earlier times. And Johnny was just like, what am I going to do?
Right.
You know, he just kind of went along with it, and everybody thought everything was fine. This is the president of the damn United States, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is big medicine.
That's right. Yes.
This is big shit. And so one thing leads to another, and I don't want to spoil it, but you just go listen and watch it, and the way he handled that whole situation, and I'll tell you what he's saying after we get off the air. I don't want to ruin it for everybody in case you want to watch it, but it was pretty damn incredible.
Wow. Yeah.
And wrote The Man in Black because he knew he was going to be answering questions at a seminar, at a deal in War Memorial Gym at Vanderbilt University for the students. And stayed up that whole night and wrote that song, The Man in Black.
Wow.
And sang it, and then was asked about it. And had to, big stuff.
I'm going to go back and watch that because I don't think I've actually watched it all the way to the end. So I need
pretty incredible.
That's pretty cool.
In the midst of that, I was thinking of another one. Ray Price is one that it's one that I
seen him and Willie and Merle together on that Last of the Breed tour. They were at Smoky Stadium.
Oh man, I bet that was killer.
Yeah, Merle opened the show. Willie came out second. No, I'm sorry. Ray Price opened the show. I can't remember. I think it was Merle came out second and Willie closed it. But, or it could have been opposite, but I know Ray opened. But when Merle came out there in whatever position, second or third, he just said, Ray Price just showed us all how to sing tonight. And look at his history, he was just a West Texas kid, and Hank Williams just happened to come through town and hear him sing and convinces him to move to Nashville. Was roommates with Hank.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some pretty good.
That's something else. I can't even imagine.
Can you imagine being roommates with Hank Williams?
Oh, my word. Well, I don't know if it went quite as much like when Cash and Waylon were roommates.
Oh, Lord.
They were hiding their speed from each other.
Yeah, exactly.
At any rate, I'd have to throw Ray Charles in that mix, too.
Yeah.
Aretha, Loretta, just because it's just who she was. It's kind of like Dale McCurry. Not the greatest singer in the world, but something about it. You hear him talk and he sings just like it. Sings just like he talks.
Character, man.
Yeah.
Dale, yeah. I swear, and he's got a lot of control over it too. I love how he can switch between real voice and falsetto so much, and a lot of times you can't even tell which one he's doing. I mean, it's so natural.
Yeah.
But
it's been doing it a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I've said it on here before, but he gave me one of the best pieces of advice where I was struggling with learning rhythm and trying to do, I wanted to be the nose guard. I wanted to be Jimmy or Red Smiley or or Sparks, just that rhythm.
Right.
Or him. Great example of it. And, I asked him one day, we were at Cherokee over there when, was the old promoter that did the Cherokee campground?
Was it Norman Adams?
Norman Adams, yeah. And we got backstage somehow or another. And somehow or another, I got to play Dale's guitar. And,
nice.
And I hit an E chord on it and about, a little pee run down my leg, And so just was asking him, I was just like, what do I do? I'm trying to learn this rhythm. Now, this is what I want to do. I don't have any desire to do all this other stuff. And he just said, well, when you want them to hear it, you just stick it up there in the microphone and let them hear it. And the rest of the time, you just kind of fill the hole that's there and sing. I was like, and that's all you got to do? It clicked.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, Okay.
Makes sense, yeah.
I was making this way too hard.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I was thinking about all this stuff and, moving positions and...
Right.
I do know that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But hello, music lovers. Campbell's Music Room Guitars was opened and founded by our longtime friend Kyle Campbell back in 2017. If you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, you're always needing something. From strings, picks, or maybe a repair to your trusty instrument. Campbell's Music Room Guitars has a full line of all the stringed instruments. New and pre-owned, accessories, pedals, amplifiers, and here's the best part, it's a local, family-owned business where you will get the very best of sales and service from the owner himself. Campbell's Music Room Guitars has something for everyone. Did we mention that he also gives private lessons? Kyle is one of Knoxville's most multi-talented players and teachers with many years of professional teaching experience. Located at 5103 Kingston Pike, open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Give Kyle a call at 865-584-0041 or stop by and tell him McGill and Jamie sent you and you wanted to have one more for the good guys. What's going on with you now, Alex? I know you've got the Alex Leach Band, and I know you guys have been doing a lot of stuff, and you've been making a lot of appearances all across the Southland. But I know that you did a new recording. You worked for Jim Lauderdale. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We started the band. Let's see. I'd been playing with Ralph Stanley II for 7 years, and left his band in 2019 and started the Alex Leach Band. And Jim Lauderdale was gracious enough to produce our first album with Mountain Home over there in Nashville. And so anyway, we actually went and recorded that in March of 2020. And when we first got there and started recording, Jim, the COVID thing was, nobody really knew what was happening just yet. And so the first thing Jim said to us when we got in the parking lot to start that week of recording, we were going to be there Monday to Friday. And Jim said, "Hey guys," he said, "let's just do an elbow bump." He said, "I've got the COVID, but just a little bit of it." And it was just like, making a joke or whatever. Right. Well, by the end of that week, everything started shutting down, and Jim was on his phone, and he said, "Wow, guys," he said, "Merle Fest just got canceled."
Yeah.
He said, "I think we're dealing with something way more than what we originally thought 5 days ago when we came here to record." He's like, "I kind of feel bad now for making jokes about this." And, and so we ended up, we left the studio, finished the album, and then Miranda and I drove home, and that was on Friday, and then that next day, everything pretty much shut down, and we were done. So our album that we recorded in March of 2020 didn't even come out until 2021.
Okay.
So anyhow, but we finally got that out, and then we recorded another album with Mountain Home after that. And so we did a couple albums with them. And as of lately, we've got some shows coming up this year. I've also just started working with the Crooked Road up in Virginia. The Crooked Road, does a lot of
I've seen that
shows
on the. I wasn't aware of it. Tell folks about it, but I did see it on your social media.
Yeah, it's an organization that's this is their 20th anniversary, but they have several venues that work with them across Southwest Virginia, even up into Middle Virginia.
Right.
And a lot of times if a venue wants to put on a show, they'll get the Crooked Road to produce it or book the bands or whatever and be able to sponsor it and give them a few more funds. They are able to get some grants for that and everything. So they just hired me on as the project coordinator, and I think we're supposed to have by the end of March, we're supposed to have about 50-something shows booked throughout the year in Southwest Virginia at several different venues with a lot of old-time string bands and some bluegrass and this and that. So I've always wanted to get into that side of the business, be able to do some of the booking side of things and get to know folks on the other side except just picking and all. So I think this will be fun. It's a good work from wherever you are. As long as I've got Wi-Fi and a computer, I can take care of a lot of that and be a part of those shows. And we've got a few Alex Leach Band shows coming up. And then I've also been picking some with Mr. Wyatt Ellis from here in East Tennessee, a young man. He's 14, great mandolin player.
Okay.
And he just played his first Grand Ole Opry appearance here a while back. So
did he play it by himself? I mean, with his project, or was he with somebody?
Yeah, he played it. He was invited to do it with his own project. It was a little bit before I started playing some shows with him, but he's got a new album coming out. He's got, I think, speaking of Marty Stewart, Ronnie McCurry, a bunch of different folks, I believe, are going to be on that. But
maybe that's what I've seen something on social media with a younger kid, a hot picker.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't, but I imagine it might be the same person.
He's really awesome. He's a good young man. He's been coming up to the house. We've been singing a lot together and just working out a lot of them old duets and stuff, which is awesome. And I'm so glad to see another young one coming along that got a good attitude about it and respects the music and is just a really cool guy. So I think he's going to do well. And so we've got all sorts of projects coming along, and Ralph too called me a couple of days ago, and I believe I'm going to go fill in with the Clinch Mountain Boys again here in another week or two, to play a show or two and
just
stuff.
For old time's sake.
It's been about 5 years since I've played full time with Ralph, and we've obviously stayed really good friends, and I love Ralph and his whole family and all, and so he called me, and that was really fun. I think we're going to do that here in a couple of weeks, so we're just kind of taking it all in, and just whatever comes along, we just kind of hit the road and ready to roll.
Right. So. Well, now your first record with Mountain Home, was that the I'm the Happiest When I'm Moving?
Yes, that was it. Yep.
And then you had the new one you were just talking about is All the Way.
Right. Yep.
All right. So I just pulled that up on my phone, guys. So if you're all listening, you can go to iTunes or anywhere you get your music, I imagine.
Right.
Because that's the way we have to do it these days. And you can search for the Alex Leach Band. And then you also had a recording, not the Alex Leach Band, but maybe it was under Alex Leach Band.
Maybe I think the one I did before that was just Alex Leach. I had some special guests on it, and are you talking about Why Sure It Is, the album? Yeah, that was back in 2018, and I had some special guests on it and all, and recorded it up in Boone, North Carolina. Speaking of Tom Isaacs and a lot of my good buddies up there a little while ago.
Yeah, there it is.
And we had a good time recording that.
And had your big hit, the Mountain Heartache.
Yep, we did Mountain Heartache on that, and
I like the Grassy Gap.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I think I wrote that the day that Aubrey Holt passed away, from the boys from Indiana.
Uh-huh.
I always loved their music, and he had a song that his son did, Tony Holt and the Wildwood Valley Boys. They did North of the Carolinas. Are you familiar with that song?
I am not.
But it's kind of similar to Grassy Gap. I kind of took the concept of that song and mixed it with another one that I loved, and it was Lou DeWitt from the Statler Brothers had wrote a song about Marshall Andy called The Knoxville Cowboy. And so the chord progression is from Lou DeWitt, and the song concept is from Aubrey Holt, is kind of where that came from.
Yeah. But, I've listened to that album a lot. And obviously, of course, the Mountain Heartache, we still do in our live shows.
Oh, and I love your version of that too.
Well, I'm glad you do, because it's completely different, not just sounding wise, but when we got together to do the 20th anniversary at WDVX at the Bijou, I found that it was really different, and it was not the same chords. Which was kind of like, it scared me a little bit. I was like, oh shit, I
had to learn it.
I had to, yeah. And the thing about it was, I mean, they had talked to me about doing something with Alex, and I said, yeah, I'd love to do something with Alex. I said that'd be tremendous, especially for the 20-year thing and blah blah blah.
We even did Tennessee Mountain Home that night too,
but I didn't know until about 14 hours before we walked on stage that it was even going through.
Yeah.
So we had no time to get together. We went down in the below the stage,
basement of the Bijou,
yeah, in the basement, and worked on it. And I was like, man, you got to run it again. I said, I've played it so many times the other way. I'm going to screw it up bad.
I always tell everybody that if somebody wants to jam it or whatever, I'll say really the only thing you got to remember is there's really no 5 in there. Just always stick with the 4 and go from there.
Yeah. Well, it's such a, and I introduce it, and I always preface you and it being on the album that won Album of the Year with Michael Cleveland. But with the Grammy win, I'll get it out here in just a second, folks. Bear with me. Don't judge me. Trying new shit tonight. But I always introduce it, and we always get a really big response from it. People love it. But you wrote that, I believe, with a fellow by the name of Rafe Waters.
Rafe Waters.
Is that right?
Rafe used to play bass for Larry Gillis back when I was working with Larry, and we were out in Lake Havasu, Arizona at the Bluegrass Festival out there.
Yep.
I remember going out there. That was a long trip. A lot of times with Larry, I would take my banjo on board as well, and when he was driving the bus, I'd pick the banjo a little bit, and a couple of other band members, would grab some instruments, and we'd jam along or whatever.
Right.
But I had that melody in my head. I kept playing it on the banjo over and over all the way out there. We even had I think he had a flat tire on the Silver Eagle somewhere in Texas, and we ended up having to get that fixed. And by the time we got to Lake Havasu, we played our set out there. We went to the convenience store to grab a few things there once we got to Lake Havasu. Ran into somebody working the cash register from La Follette, Tennessee. And they asked me, they said, wow, you've got a thick accent. Where are you from? And I said, I'm from East Tennessee. And they said, oh, that's what we thought. We're from in East Tennessee. And I said, La Follette. And that person working the register said, well, that's pretty cool. I've got some family that live in Jacksboro. So I said, wow. So anyway.
Small world. So
we played that show out there, and then we got back on the bus and started home. I got the banjo back out and was playing that same exact thing. And Rafe, he finally came over to me, and he just slung a pen and paper at me. I said, what's that for? He said, that's for you to write some damn lyrics to that same thing you've been playing for the last 15 hours.
You're wearing me out.
Yeah. So we sat there and started writing the word. We wrote it in about 10 or 15 minutes.
Well, it was with the name Rafe. I don't think I've asked you this before. I heard it on the radio the first time, and I called Alex immediately. I was driving up the interstate from a gig, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I got to do this song. Is it yours? He's like, yeah, me and Rafe. And, he filled me in on everything, but I just loved it because it was so... Okay, getting back. So the name Rafe... Is this guy like 137, or is he like a 20-year-old kid with an old man's name? I mean, what's the deal?
Rafe is, I'm trying to think of how old Rafe would be now.
I'm being silly with the extremes of the ages, but...
When I joined Larry's band, I think Rafe was around, probably around 40 years old. I'd say Rafe's probably mid-50s now.
Yeah.
But, he...
Don't you say old.
Oh, Lord, no. I don't consider old until you're about 92. But,
okay, that's good.
Anyway.
Well, you can stay a little while longer.
But, yeah, Rafe is a great guy, and he started playing with Larry Gillis on the bass. He had never played bass before. He literally kind of got thrown right into it, and Larry said, here's what you need to do, and take it home, practice a little bit. So he had been playing with Larry for about 6 months when I joined the band, and so anyway, Rafe's just a cool guy. We always would share coon hunting stories and all that, and he don't really play music much anymore. He works with the EMS, and he's really worked his way up in that, and doing really well. They've given him several awards, and he's really worked hard in that side. So he's a great guy.
Well, I always wondered that because I mean I know just from knowing you for such a long time and watching you grow up and stuff that that you're an old soul at heart, but you know, there's subject matter in that song that's heavy.
Oh yeah,
heavy stuff.
We started
and a way of life that may have not been yours or my way of life back in that day, because we were insulated from that just a bit,
right? But
still, yet there's so much truth in it, in my opinion, and I'm breaking it down as the way when I heard it and perform it, is there's still that much relevant truth in it now, that it's something that spans. It sounds old. It sounds old timey. It sounds this. It sounds like, 33 or whatever, but, with the date thrown in there. But it's really something that, in my opinion, it's still something today that families and people are going through even now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's still relevant.
Right.
I guess it's not just an ode to a times past.
Exactly, especially in our part of the country, too.
Exactly.
It really is. And, we started that out, and I told Rafe, I said, I want to throw something in there about Turley Coal Mine, up in Turley, you go into Caryville and then drive up the way a little bit, you go through Block Coal and then come into Turley and up in that, and then finally into Royal Blue, up in that area. But my papa Scobie, he worked in the mines for several years and worked at Turley at the Tipple there, and worked in several coal mines up in Kentucky and all that. So I wanted to start off the song, kind of paying that to him, working like he did. I mean, he worked so hard and provided for his family. Just one of the best people I ever known. And
same here.
Yep. And
your pap was he was a gentleman.
He was a dandy. I mean, they don't make them like that anymore.
No, he was always so kind to me.
He was a good one. And so anyway, we started the song off with that, and then once we got going, it was kind of like the poor guy in the song that we're writing about. It was just like, what can we do to him next? What can happen to him next?
Yeah.
So we just said, well, he. The brothers had to go to war, and he had to work in the coal mine. What next? I guess let's get him married off, and then
he falls in love.
Falls in love, has a kid, never sees the kid. The woman runs off, and so I guess the best thing he can look forward to is going to heaven, I reckon, at the very end.
Yeah, because it's been hell on earth.
It's been hell on earth.
Well, I love the song, and I'm super grateful that you gave us permission to do it. And,
man, I absolutely love your version of that, and that means a lot that you'd even consider doing it. I absolutely,
man, it was such
love what y'all did with it.
Such a great melody, and
that's my favorite one we play.
Yeah,
probably. And
I don't know if you've heard it with the band.
I don't think I have.
You haven't heard it with like the electric guitar and the piano and everything on it. It's really, really pretty.
Nice. I'd love to get to hear that.
We'll get you a copy of it somewhere or another. But so another song I was on the. I'm ashamed to admit, but I've only heard cuts. I've only heard radio cuts from the two new records, but from the one that I've listened to a lot. Another one I really love that I thought y'all did a really, really good job on was Where Does the Little Tear Come From?
Oh, thank you.
Is that an Osborne Brother tune?
It's actually a George Jones, but
okay.
The version that I kind of based that off of was a group out of West Virginia. I've got a record album of them, the Butler Brothers.
Okay.
Homer and Jerry Butler from West Virginia, and they did a lot of cool songs like that. And to be honest, when I first heard that song, I didn't even recognize it as the George Jones song. A lot of times I'm bad to just listen to the notes and everything, not really pay attention to the words as much on the first go around, And I heard that and I thought, man, that'd be a really good one to cut. And then after I got to looking up the words, I said, this thing sounds awful familiar. And then obviously George had cut it, in the early 60s.
Yeah.
But yeah, we done that. I totally based it off. Was
that when he was still on Star Day, or not Star Day, but
the Music Corps
with Pappy?
I believe it was
getting it wrong.
The Music Corps recorded like the time he was doing Root Beer and a lot of that stuff there.
Okay.
Right after the Mercury Star Day and everything. But anyhow, it's a really good song. I got a call. Joe Mullins called me, and he said, "Where'd you get that little where'd you come up with that arrangement at?" He said that's kind of what I was looking for to do on our next album or whatever. And I said, Butler Brothers. I said, vinyl. It came on one day they did it in the early 70s, and I said, God, I've got to cut that, or whatever. And of course, Tom really Isaacs and all them guys, were coming in the studio and we cut that. But I love a lot of those old country songs like that can turn into a good grassy tune or whatever. But them Butler Brothers, they really knew how to arrange that, and it sounded so original too. I mean, if you wouldn't pay attention, you'd think they wrote it. It sounds so much just your
version of it really put me in the mind of because it was that double time, it was that that up tempo, but then you had all those harmonies just stacked in there, just so it really put me in the mind of like One Tear.
Yeah, it kind of has that Osbourne feel about it with the stacking on that.
Feel to it like that. Really enjoyed that one.
Well, thank you so much. I love that song. We've not done that out live, and I don't know how long, but
man, that'd be a good one to dust off.
Oh definitely.
It's a good. And it might give you some, it might help you with the, it might help you with the grass holes. I'm gonna leave it right there.
I knew what you were thinking there.
And still you get to do what you want to do. That's the thing, when I've had people come up to me and I'll sing a George Jones song, or I'll do something, and somebody will come up and say, "Oh man, he stopped loving her today." And I said, "Yeah, I know that one. Would you sing that one?" And I was like, "Have you ever heard George Jones sing that song?" "Well, yeah, that's why I'm asking you if you'd do it." And I said, "Well, if you've ever truly heard George Jones do that song, you'd understand that nobody else should ever even attempt to do that song. And I'm not going to be the first one to start it tonight.
Yeah.
I'll sing you a George Jones song you probably didn't know. I may do you two songs that you never even knew was a George Jones song, or you may not have ever heard." I said, "But, I ain't singing that one."
Yeah.
Why would you?
Yeah, I know. I
don't have the girls with the, ooh, I don't have none of that. I don't have no steel guitar. It's just me and a guitar.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. But
I remember that night I saw y'all, and I was probably kind of like the guy you're talking about that asked you about that.
Did you ask me?
No, I didn't ask you that one, but we were, my wife and some friends of ours, some of our band members, we were hanging out in
Barley's one night.
We were at Barley's one night, and we had been kind of bar hopping that night a little bit. We had us a room right down the street, so we said, we're just going to hit it pretty good tonight and have a good time. And we walked in there, and you guys were just wearing it out. And I remember standing up and just hollering out, "Tennessee Mountain Home." And I sat down. I said, "My goodness, I don't know what I need to shut up." And probably had me one too many when one was a plenty.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one. I hadn't heard that one before.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, well, it happens. It happens.
Got to let the hair down every now and then,
I've been guilty of that a time or two.
Really? I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It surprises most people.
It really, I bet it does.
But hey, I'm human too.
There you go.
Guilty as charged, 100% human.
Guilty as charged.
I had a buddy of mine come up with he sent me a text. I said, hey, I'm playing down at so-and-so tonight. You should come out and see us. And he wrote me back. And I've been working on it, but he wrote me back this text that said, sounds like a good, let's see, let me get it right. Sounds like a good opportunity to make some bad decisions.
There you go.
And I thought, shit, that's a hook.
Oh, yeah.
That's a song. That's a country music song if I ever heard one.
Oh, yeah.
I've been working on that one a little bit.
Nice.
Well, so you got some stuff coming up with 2, and you've got some Alex Leach band stuff coming up. You got the big project with the company out of Southwest Virginia. Is that right?
The Crooked Road. Yeah.
Crooked Road. Okay.
And just
now, are y'all going to be doing any just old time and bluegrass? Are you doing any singer songwriter? Are you doing any? We might do some bridging any gaps.
Do some singer songwriter stuff as well. It's I'm trying to. We've been talking as well.
I'll throw my hat in that ring.
Yes, exactly. And most of the Crooked Road, they're pretty much specialized in Southwest Virginia.
Right.
So most of the bands we book are from up there.
Sure.
But I've been talking to a lot of the folks in the organization, and also been talking to Tony Lawson, and we've kind of come up with a little idea we might be able to work on that. We might put a little spur on the Crooked Road down in East Tennessee.
Oh, there you go.
If that's the case, we'll be able to do a lot of cool things and work together. Maybe WDVX and the Crooked Road and all. I just any way to promote the music and do anything we can for that it's the keeping the Appalachian style alive and showing people what it's all about, especially tourists coming through and getting to check it out.
I think it's smart on your end too, just as a individual. Because, looking back on it now, I mean, being 20 years older, to stay in this business for as long as you want to stay in this business, you constantly have to reinvent yourself.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
You're all the time trying to figure out a new angle, or not necessarily an angle, but something new to keep you growing inside, that you don't lose, the sentiment for doing your craft.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you said, there's so much on that side of the microphone that you've not done before, and that's going to work out good for you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Throw yourself at that.
I'm really excited about it. It's with our band, we've traveled a whole lot. In a lot of the bluegrass festivals, you can't. In this style of music, you can't really set up a tour and go from here to there. It's literally one night you might be in Florida and then driving your way to Missouri to make it to the next day, and it's very sporadic in a lot of ways. And this year looks like it's going to be a lot simpler as far as that goes. I mean, we'll do, if we want to go out and do an Alex Leach band show, we can go and we've got a few different things booked, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and a few, things to go and go do the show, come back home and not have to beat up the roads up and down for 2 or 3 weeks straight and be able to work on different sides of the fence, is really nice.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a fun year just to be able to, to kind of do a few different aspects of the.
Yeah. Well, don't ever forget that I know you got a really talented band and you like it, and we like that kind of thing as well. I mean, I love playing with my band as well. But don't ever forget, you can do that with a guitar too.
Oh yeah.
Like that thing we did with that residency deal that we had at Boyd's Jigging Reel here.
Oh, that was so fun.
That was so much fun.
You and me and Chris West.
Yeah,
that was awesome. I really loved that.
Yeah, and we may try to do another one of those here before too long. Something they were doing as a series, but I think it would be something really good to also kind of split up and do. Who all's in your band right now?
Well, we've right now we have my wife Miranda. She does a lot of the the high harmony vocals and all. Zach Russell playing the guitar, and Zach, I don't know, he'll do as many shows as he can with us this coming year, but he's working on a solo career, and he just got signed with 30 Tiger Records, and just released a solo album that he recorded about a year and a half ago, and so yeah, we're real proud of Zach. He's doing awesome, and
you're playing guitar as well,
right?
Yeah, but he's handling all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
He does a lot of the guitar stuff and a lot of singing, harmony, and lead too. And Casey Moore, she plays fiddle with us. And Casey's from Anderson County. Her family's originally from Ohio, but they moved down here years ago when she was really little. And so anyway, she's phenomenal, about 20 years old. And Baker Northern, he's from down in Jackson, Tennessee, and he goes to UT right now doing his college degree. So he picks with us. And
he's playing, what's he playing?
Baker's playing the banjo.
Okay.
Right. And so, yeah, he's doing a really good job. And then, of course, my wife, Miranda, and I, we do a lot of the songwriting and singing and stuff, but having a good band, I love to feature them and let everybody just kind of do what they want to do. And,
absolutely.
It's not I'm the main guy and it's all my show. I like having everybody, bring to the table what they want and, and work together and make it a unit,
Yeah, that's coming from that. That's coming from the showbiz aspect of what we grew up on.
Yeah, exactly.
With Ralph, like we were talking about early,
Oh, yeah.
Featuring Jack, featuring Curly Ray.
Yeah.
Bringing somebody in to sing and do different things.
Yeah, bringing the whole band to the table. And
it's like that baseball metaphor, it's everybody gets a turn at the plate, and it makes it, I've always, sometimes maybe to a fault, but that's what I've always liked to do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, give somebody an opportunity to do it.
Yep, that's right.
Especially when they're good enough to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And people can hear it.
Yeah.
That all sounds good. Have you been writing any? Have you been?
I have actually been doing a lot of writing. I've got probably close to a full album of bluegrass material written.
Oh, good.
And then probably 6 or 7 songs that kind of reflect more on like we were talking about earlier, like popular music of the 50s and 60s that my wife and I have been working on. We're thinking about maybe doing like an album with the two of us.
Sure.
And maybe bringing in some musicians to play on that as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just like I say, I love music. So I've just been kind of whatever comes to mind on the day of the week or whatever, just kind of go down into the office and listen to some stuff and write some lyrics down and hopefully get in the studio here before long. And I really want to cut another good album similar to Why Sure It Is, a lot of the more traditional bluegrass style, and then maybe do something completely on the other end of the spectrum, hopefully this year as well, but we'll see what happens with all of it.
Well, if you need help with that, we got quite a we can put you with quite a few good pickers.
Well, that'd be great. I'd love to do that.
People that can handle that.
I'll definitely be talking to you about that because it's something I've always wanted to do. I've never done anything as far as putting out an album. It's always been in the bluegrass territory, but I'd love to do some other stuff that I love and appreciate as well and incorporate that. And I know you guys, a lot of the good people, I mean, including y'all too. I'd love for us to collaborate on some good stuff and
Jamie's
see what happens.
A hell of a piano player, organ and all that stuff. And, I don't know if there's a better electric guitar player around than Poe Hanna.
Nice.
I mean, Poe's just do it all.
I'd love to get in there and cut some of that, maybe even like some of that electric organ stuff like Ray Manzarek or some of that style as well.
Were you dabbling and messing around with pedal steel at one time?
I was a little bit. Speaking of Bud Brewster, I bought that, my grandparents bought me that several years ago for Christmas.
Okay.
And bought that from Pick and Grin. And I was messing around with it for a good while. I've not played it in a long time.
Chop it up for kindling.
Well, once I got it, I pretty much learned one of my favorite licks.
Yeah.
And so I recorded 2 or 3 songs with it, and that was about it. Yeah. But I always love that, like Satisfied Mind with Porter Wagner, you know, that. How many times have you heard someone say, wow, wow, wow? You know, that awesome still stuff.
I had his money, I do things my way.
Yeah. That was always one of my favorites. And just that simple still lick, just the little pedal lick there is so fun. But I learned a little bit on it, but them things... I've not taken the time to sit down and try. And even if I did take the time, I don't know how well I would be on it. But
they're pretty tough, man.
Yeah, they really are. I've got a good friend that played steel on our last album with the Alex Leach band. My buddy Chris Castle. He's working with Daryl Worley now, and we grew up. He was actually from Butcher Holler. From where Loretta was born and raised, and great steel guitar player, dobro, bass. He can do a lot of things, and he came in and played a couple of cuts on our last album that we did last year. But he just took a job with Daryl Worley, and he's wearing it out.
Does baloney make him horny?
Stop your growling, dude. You sound like old bears.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, goodness.
I went to, I played Little League football with the lady that played Loretta's mama in that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Travis Bozeman. You remember him? I think they moved off not long after that, or maybe a year or so later. He was older than I was, but his mother was...
Coal miner's daughter.
Yeah, played Loretta's mama in Coal miner's daughter.
Levon Helm played her dad, didn't he? Was that Levon Helm?
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah. Great movie.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. That is a great movie, man. She did a hell of a job singing that stuff, too, because she sang all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I thought the show, did you see the Showtime series, George and Tammy?
Was it the Tales from the Tour Bus?
Oh, what the hell? This nosy bitch. God damn. Fuck off, Siri.
Siri's got to get her nose in every damn thing.
Damn nosy bitch.
Oh.
The hell? That's the first time that's ever happened.
Was it the Tales from the Tour Bus, or was it an actual?
No, it was an actual.
It's a dramatized thing.
Yeah, it was a dramatization of George and Tammy. It was. Can't ever remember that actor's name. I remember first seeing him in the. Oh, come on, brain! It was in the thing Scorsese did with Steve Buscemi, Boardwalk Empire.
Oh yeah.
He was this G-man FBI guy.
Okay.
And it was, I just remember.
Oh, that's,
I can't think of his name.
God, he's been a lot.
But I just remember seeing him there for the first time, and I just remember thinking, that's the ugliest, weirdest dude I've ever seen, ever, man. But he played George.
His name's Michael Shannon.
Michael Shannon, that's right. And Jessica Chastain played Tammy.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was good.
I'll have to check that out.
I know
a
lot of folks was bitching about it because they actually used them singing, and and everybody was like, "Well, you can't believe sing George Jones and blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Well, the reason they did that, you bunch of dumbasses, is because the money would be." To use all that stuff from those days, the mechanicals, the licensing, the royalties, that would have been because it would have been labeled TV, not movie, but it would have been labeled TV. You know, it's like 10 or 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And the money would have been astronomical. What they had to pay to use all those original recordings.
And not just the songwriters.
Exactly.
So,
but I thought...
Because he didn't write nothing.
I thought...
three things, right?
He had a few, but not. He definitely wasn't known as a songwriter. No, for sure. He was credited a few of the popular songs he had back during the days, but at any rate, I just thought they did a really good job for somebody that's not, for actors who are not trained singers. She did an amazing job.
Oh yeah.
And given the fact that he was doing George Jones, even if he did halfway decent, it would be an amazing job.
A lot easier to copy Tammy than it is George, I would imagine.
To even line up and just say, yeah, okay, I'll do it. You know, he never had a singing lesson or anything in his life, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But it was good.
Speaking of those those documentaries like that, we watched, it's been 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was on Netflix or one of the streaming services there, but it was a James Brown documentary, and this woman, all on her own, independently did a documentary on James Brown, and it was like the last 2 or 3 years of his life, and she's following him around, and it's so funny because I guess she wasn't able to use any of his music in the documentary.
Oh, yeah.
So every time she would go back and show a clip of him on stage, doing his thing, it was just a bass track. It was like a walking bass track. So you'd see James up there doing all the stuff, and you'd just hear dong dong da dong da dong da dong. I thought, my goodness.
Yeah,
it was a great documentary. It was like 2 hours long, but you didn't hear a single bit of James Brown music in that whole documentary. But
I guess she didn't have the funding or the backing to be able to try to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that was I thought it was good. I thought, and it was good enough, even though it was a dramatization, it was good enough that I was afraid that they were going to let one or the other, and probably George, be the scapegoat of the crazy one.
Yeah.
When in truth, they were both crazy.
They were moments,
both crazy.
Yeah.
Tammy was just as screwed up and was just as much dependent on painkillers and alcohol and everything as George was. They were both equally bipolar, I think.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
With their dependencies and their vices. But if you haven't seen it, it's on Showtime. And you better catch it fast. I heard the Showtime app was no more. I heard it's shutting down at some day.
Well,
they're going with Paramount Plus.
Yeah, if you get Paramount Plus now, Showtime's included, which is the best deal going. By the way, I mean, it's like $7 or something.
Yeah. So if you haven't done that yet, you better go do it. But yeah, watch George and Tammy. It's pretty good stuff. And I thought it was pretty accurate as far as the, like I said, they both shared equal craziness in it. And it wasn't one wasn't left out over the other, but at any rate, I don't know how we got on that. But, I don't know, man. We need to find, that's something that's in short supply around here is steel guitar players.
Oh, yeah.
Brock's great and plays a lot around town. But if you told me anybody, I don't know anybody else.
Yeah.
Like around here.
Few and far between. They really are.
I guess if you branched out in Sevier County a little bit, you could probably find a few of the theater guys that are doing stuff that might be able to do some things. But
right.
That's
that's just a trade that a lot of folks aren't picking up nowadays. It's they're few and far between for sure. But I love a steel guitar. Even in bluegrass, I've always said it. I would rather hear a steel guitar than a dobro. I think in bluegrass, all that Osborne stuff, where they use the session musicians, that just so good, so just dead on it. And And I mean, I love a dobro too, but that steel guitar, just there's something about that, just the tone and the sound, just really.
There's so much presence.
Yeah, it really is.
You know, and when you mix that into the bluegrass stuff, it's it just gives it that. I think it was before and after pot for the Osborne Brothers. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
You look at all those early records and they're all clean and, you know, like looking up towards the skies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The next thing you know, they're on a fence post and they got Sonny's got the goatee that looks like the devil. And
oh, yeah.
I think it was before and after pot.
I love the Osborne's way. I just feel like they were so unapologetic about what they did. And that's
really
what made them what they were.
They really were, now that you mention it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like they would do what they wanted to in the studio and, you know, lock it or lump it. This is it. And
this is what we're doing.
And all the Bluegrass festivals still hired them, you know. I mean, I think because of that.
Electric bass.
Yeah.
Snare player.
Yeah.
I mean, that was taboo.
If they would have bowed down to people
that
complaining.
Was taboo as hell.
Yeah. And they never really cared, you know, as far as what people really thought. I mean, they were making great music and they weren't letting anybody keep them from that. And I respect them so much for that, for just being unapologetic. And this is what we do. Here we are. That's so awesome.
I think you're exactly right on that. I mean, because there were, well, you faced it. We were talking about it a little while before we started recording. You know, you faced it with being, with having such a traditional background and such a specific style.
Yeah.
And if you color outside of the lines any at all, and because it is bluegrass, you're going to hear it from the people. The people are going to talk to you about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, whether they've got any couth about themselves or not, you're going to hear it.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the big things that's missing in music, period. Especially with folks that are trying to, and you know, I don't know, I was getting ready to say that, but it's not necessarily that anybody I think it's more so when you're somebody who's trying to find a deal or trying to make that big jump to bridge the gap between, you know, being completely popular music, top 40 music, and or, you know, the big time. The big time to me always meant that I was doing what the hell I wanted to do.
Yeah, there you go.
And nobody else was telling me what to do.
There you go. That's where it's at.
That was professional. That was the big time. That was the dream for me. It wasn't, you know, my daddy, your granddaddy, 30 years of service and gold watch and chain is David Davis and the Warrior River Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's somebody that was underlooked.
Yeah. David Davis, one of the very best.
Singer.
Yeah.
My goodness. Everybody talks about Pat Enright.
Yeah.
Shit.
David Davis, I swear, deserves so much more recognition. And his mandolin playing's great. His uncle, Cleo Davis, played with the Bluegrass Boys in the 40s with Bill Monroe. I mean,
that record he made with that had Owen on it.
Owen Saunders,
was
The Lonesome Cry, The Whippoorwill.
Yeah, that's
and all
it. Wasn't that the name of the record too?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, it was from the early 2000s.
Boy, if you guys like bluegrass music, go get that one.
Oh yeah, that's great stuff right there.
Shit, yeah,
and
such a good singer.
Yeah.
But I guess getting back to what I was saying is just the Osborne Brothers, you know, Fair and Young, you said earlier. All these heroes we've talked about, all these people, Ray Charles, none of them gave a shit.
Yeah.
They were fearless.
Yeah.
And they did what they wanted to do, and it either took or it didn't.
That's right.
And I think they were happy one way or the other.
Oh, yeah.
If it did, they were great.
Yeah.
If it didn't, I don't know if they would have been disappointed.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'm totally guessing. Obviously, I'm playing.
And it's even talking about, you know, like Brian Wilson, too, you know, when he wrote Pet Sounds, one of the greatest albums of all time, and that came out and didn't really do a whole lot at the time, you know, and how Now I don't know, but at the same time, I mean, that was his art. You know, he was going for it. That's what he was living for. And nowadays, obviously, one of the best albums of all time. But it's just, you know, you got to do what you feel. It had to stand
the test of time to get its accolades.
Yep.
That was over a lot of people's head.
Yeah.
I mean, it was way ahead of its time.
It was,
it really is.
Well, it had to stand the test of time to get its accolades. And that's like a lot of these songs we were talking about and versions and rewrites, or not rewrites, but arrangements wise. A good song will stand.
Oh, yeah.
As many arrangements as you want to put on it, because it was a good song from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
It had the right structure. It had the right, you know, the definitions, the meanings, the feel.
Yeah.
It'll stand.
Yep.
It'll stand.
Exactly.
So I just think that's something that, you know, in this society today, and the music business has always been like, it's not like it's completely changed since then. I mean, Nashville's always been making records.
Emphasis on the
They've
business
always
part.
been making pop hits.
Music business. That's what it really is.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's a good way of putting it. But I think you just got to be fearless. Success is defined, to me, as what you want it to be defined as.
Yeah, that's right.
If it's something that, you know, I was getting into earlier and I got off on David Davis, but, you know, that 30 years of service and that gold watch.
Yeah.
You know, with your granddad, my dad, Jamie's dad and granddad's, you know, that's a thing of the past.
Yep.
You know, there's no loyalty. There's none of that shit anymore.
And you got music and a lot of them, how they, you
have to be fearless.
You have to be. A lot of them were, because, I mean, you know, they stood the test of time, because, I mean, if you have one failure that didn't chart like you wanted it to, or this or that, I mean, it's so easy just to be like, wow, I'm just going to tuck my tail between my legs and, you know, go home or whatever. But I respect them so much. All the ones that just said, hell with it, I'm going to keep going, and the next one's going to be even better. And then eventually something huge happened, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, in this business, you just kind of have to keep pushing and nonstop. Speaking of another great singer, Curtis Mayfield, just came to my head when I said keep on pushing. Golly, the impressions, another dandy there. Him and Jerry Butler together were awesome as well.
I'll tell you something that made me think too, but Lionel Richie.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Commodores, man, he's one of the great vocalists.
On you.
I mean, really, just
down in my soul that I just can't.
Not to get off on a tangent, but I always, because I do a lot of recording and stuff, and
still,
I was just thinking, I'd like to have been there the first time that some of those people started singing in the studio and been the engineer.
Oh, yeah.
And just been like, I can't do nothing to improve that.
Yeah. Just sitting there watching magic happen.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
it's just
easy like Sunday morning. I got to see Lionel, and I'll say it Lionel because that's the way he said it. I got to see him in, I believe it was either 2015 or 2016. I had got suckered into going down and helping Robbie work Bonnaroo. And Lionel Richie was one of the big acts, you know, that was going to be down there. And he came out, and it was just him and a piano.
Oh, wow.
You know, and 50,000 people.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just like, I'm anxious to see what he's going to do, you know. And he was so good. And there was about a 20-minute section of the show that was all about breakup and love gone wrong and hard time. And, you know, and he was just playing and he's talking and, you know, and it's like, so I was dating this girl, you know, and we were having a real good thing going on. And I mean, the love was great. Everything was this and that and splendid and blah, blah, blah. And then, it all went to pieces. And I didn't know what to do but to go to the piano and call Lionel. And then he'd go back into the chords, and start playing again.
Wow.
And he just sang like 5 damn hits in a row. And he would make up this story getting into every one of them. And the hook was call Lionel.
Wow.
And he'd start playing the song and everybody just lose their minds, because they knew the song,
I bet it sounded great, too.
Oh, it was tremendous, man. It was tremendous.
Speaking of that, too, one of my favorite concerts I saw, which I guess I would have to say my top 3 favorite concerts would probably be Merle Haggard. I saw Merle at the Tennessee back.
Oh, yeah.
It was about 6 months before he passed.
Yeah. It was in 2015. I was at that show, too.
I was at that show as well.
I loved it when he brought the fiddle out and played the fiddle. I was like, wow, what a damn legend right there.
Played the farmer's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Brian Wilson would be another one. I saw Brian a couple of times, and he did the whole Pet Sounds album on one of the shows, and then the other he did, just a lot of the classic Beach Boys stuff. And I think Bob Dylan was one of my favorites. It was October. It was Halloween night at the Tennessee. Did either of y'all?
I didn't get to go to that.
Go to that one? It was in 2018 or 19, but Miranda and I went and saw Bob, and he was at the piano, and he had a steel guitar player, bass player, and then just a guitar guy.
Yeah.
And he sang a lot of his old stuff, obviously, how he does it now, but he did a lot of new stuff too. And I thought Dylan was really good.
I bet.
There was some guy jumped up on stage at the very end and went running, trying to grab Bob, and I saw
a
security guard came and tackled the guy right before he got to Bob.
You don't look at Bob. You don't talk to Bob.
You act like he's not there.
Yeah.
That's
Bob
what John Rigsby said that time. There's a video. Have you seen that video of John Rigsby talking about recording with Bob Dylan with Ralph Stanley? He said back in the 90s, Ralph was cutting that Clinch Mountain Country album.
I've heard what I just said for years from people that's...
Well, they brought Bob Dylan in there.
Yeah.
Dr. Ralph had never even heard of Bob Dylan.
Yeah, they didn't know it.
Didn't know whatsoever.
I reckon it's little Bobby Dylan.
Yeah. So anyway, Bob comes in, and his manager or whatever came in before him, and he told John Rigsby and Ralph too and all of them, he said, Bob's getting ready to walk through the door. When he comes in, don't look at him, don't speak to him, act like he's not there. And then John said... Well, he walked in, and he walked right over to me and said, hey, how you doing? So I said, well, I'm doing good. How are you? He said, anyway, he got in there and got to singing that we were doing Lonesome River.
Yeah.
And in John's words, he says, you know how his voice is. He said, he got in there, I sit you alone on the banks of the river. And he said, I took my headphones off and I went to that engineer and I said, could you please turn him down in my headphones? He said, this is driving me damn crazy. He said, I just want to be able to hear the band to keep time and let him do his thing in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, the guy asked him, he said, was Bob nice though? And John said, oh yeah, he was a nice guy. He said, good Lord, I can't stand his singing.
Yeah.
But of course, a bluegrasser like John or Ralph or whatever, it is what it is. And
well,
you listen to John and how great his singing is and how great Ralph is. And
I have to say,
and it's like,
there's a lot of that keeps me from listening and digging into a lot of Bob Dylan stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to get past, man.
Yeah. But at the same time, I love it. I mean, a lot of the stuff he does, it's Bob, and it is what it is. But I was always told he was a big fan of the Stanley Brothers, and they said that he and Dr. Ralph sat down and talked for a couple hours, just on the same page about what they grew up listening to and all that sort of thing, and that's just really cool. That
I'm sure from that vantage point, or from just being studious and observant of, you know, the heritage of the music and the time frames that, I'm sure he probably, that was like, I mean, you know, if you got that opportunity with Ralph, Ralph was one of those guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like Babe Ruth or Ted Williams or Hank Aaron. You know, he was one of those guys.
Yeah.
Same with Monroe or Flatt and Scruggs. I mean,
Bob's that way in his world.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
For sure.
I know when Dr. Ralph passed away in 2016, they had his funeral. We, were all up there at the festival site and the graveyard that's right up the road there. And they had Ralph's funeral, and everybody, obviously, the evening rolled along and everybody left. Well, 2 days later, Ralph too told me that he got a call from Bob Dylan's manager, and Bob Dylan flew a private plane into Coburn, Virginia, and had his manager drive him up to Ralph's grave and visit the gravesite.
No kidding.
2016. Yeah,
wow.
Sure did. Which is just really, really cool.
Well, you got to think where Bob started. I mean, he started out in that folk world.
Yeah.
And the further you go in the Carolinas and the further you go up the eastern seaboard, that whole movement was a real thing that happened in the history of music.
Yep.
I never forget the first time I got to go up to Graves Mountain.
Oh, up in Syria, Virginia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to go to Graves Mountain, and, coming from down here, my heavies were the Flatt and Scruggs stuff, the Jimmy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The Spark stuff and stuff like that, was the things we were really covering back in those days,
Yeah.
And when I got up there, the jam sessions that I walked around and got to listen to and hear and be a part of, they were Stanley Brothers. They were Ralph. They were Country Gentlemen.
Yeah.
They were Seldom Seen. I mean, that was you say what you want. I mean, and I heard Trey Hensley on Instagram the other day playing the Matterhorn and singing it.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the most underrated singers and rhythm guitar players in this lifetime was Charlie Waller.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus
definitely.
Bless America.
Yep.
And it was an acquired taste for a lot of people. It wasn't the same as, all those others that I just named. But when I got up there and started getting all these different jams, I just started thinking, wow, man, this is cool stuff. This is different. I mean, it's the same, but it's way different than what I'm used to. And I know it really affected me.
Oh, yeah. And that Country Gentleman stuff, like you were talking about too, like the Matterhorn, golly, that Eddie Adcock kickoff on the banjo is just... Yeah, and a friend of mine was talking, said about 10 years or so ago at IBMA, there was a couple of guys arguing in one of the jamming rooms in there or whatever. They were arguing about, was Eddie Adcock capoed on the 7th fret on the banjo, or was he doing it from the 2nd fret? Mm-hmm. And how did he do it? And one of them was saying the 2nd, the other was saying the 7th. They kept arguing, and anyway, it goes on for a while, then all of a sudden, Eddie Adcock sticks his head in, and she says, it was the 7th fret. And he just keeps on going down the hallway.
That's great.
But I thought that's as cool as it gets right there.
Yeah, but I got to listen to a lot of that stuff up there and was really, it really made an impression, and I started listening to more of that stuff. And,
oh, yeah.
And man, that, of course, Matterhorn and, one of the Rebel Soldier.
The Rebel Soldier, Secret of the Waterfall.
You had, the other was God's Coloring Book.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, that stuff was incredible.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it had such a different... I don't know the right word even. It's just the timbre of his voice and his delivery. It was just different. And and then you put all the seldom seen stuff in there.
Yeah.
I was in Hiwassee one night at a bluegrass festival down there, and the seldom seen came on, and Chris Stapleton and the who was he with?
Steel Drivers. They just came on. They did a hell of a show. I mean, it was fantastic. And Seldom Seen came on and just came in there quietly and just busted everybody right in the fucking ass. Oh, yeah.
I mean, as quiet as they could come in, you know, and sang. And I mean, I was just like, holy cow, man. This is powerful shit.
It'd been a while since I've saw Seldom Seen, and I saw him at the Bijou here just a few months back in September, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And so I came there. And of course, I've always been a big Dudley Connell fan. I love, since Dudley's been with them, it's great. And
been on the job too long.
Yeah, and of course that Johnson Mountain Boy stuff in the '80s. Good Lord of mercy.
Tom Adams, you talking about a banjo picker?
Tom Adams and even Richard Underwood and all, that golly, they were great. And so anyway, I saw Dudley. Tony asked me if I would introduce him at the Bijou. So I said, that'd be an honor, So I went backstage and showed up, and there's Dudley getting tuned up, and we get to talking for a little while. We was talking about Johnson Mountain Boys things, and I told him, I said, I've really been listening to those records that Rounder put out back in the 80s called The Early Days of Bluegrass. It's all like these 1-2 sides, whatever, from the 50s that they put out on vinyl in the 80s. And Dudley said, he said, you're talking about it now. He said, those albums, The Early Days of Bluegrass, were literally the Johnson Mountain Boys lifeline.
Right.
And so we talked about that for a while, and then we got to talking a little bit more, and I mentioned Evan Carl. Did you ever know Evan Carl, the Bluegrass MC?
I did not.
Went up. He never really lived in a house. He pretty much stayed in hotel to hotel, and from Maine all the way down to Florida all year long. He would MC all of the big bluegrass festivals.
Wow, no, I didn't know.
And lived out of his car pretty much. And I took a few trips with Evan Carl back in the day, and trips I'll never forget. Just the car was packed all the way up as far as you could go, but he was the best MC that. He could take a local band with a guitar and a washboard and introduce them and make them sound like they were Van Halen.
Something, yeah.
He was that good. But one time we were leaving real quick. We were leaving, and his back door in his car was jammed. He had pant legs from his britches literally hanging out, dragging the floor. And he said the damn things have just literally. He said it's jammed the door. I can't open the door. And before we left, he said, do you have some scissors? And I said, yeah, I can get you some scissors, Evan. And so grabbed some scissors. And he literally just cut them off right there at the door. He said, I don't really need that door. And anyhow, but back to Dudley Connell, we were talking about Evan Carl and his MC work. And Dudley said back in the 80s that the Johnson Mountain Boys were playing a show, and Dr. Ralph was there as well. And that... he said, I walked up to Ralph and I said, man, that MC is so good. Old Evan Carl, he really knows how to bring bands on, and he's great at it. And Dr. Ralph said back to Dudley, he said, yeah, he's a dandy MA, if you ask me. And he said, I looked back at Ralph and said, MA? He said, what's that stand for? And said, Dr. Ralph said, mule's ass. So I introduced the Seldom Seen at the Bijou here a few months back, and then obviously after about 4 songs, Dudley got up there and he said, Alex, thank you for bringing us on. He said, you're one of the best MAs I've ever seen. I thought, thank you, old buddy.
Oh, man. I gotta... Hey, good guys and good gals alike. If you're looking for somewhere to go to get your hair did, then look no further than the Chop Shop Hair Studio. Our longtime friend and supporter, Cindy Lou, opened this spot located in Knoxville's very own Happy Holler back in 2010.
Chop Shop Hair Studio offers a variety of services, including facial waxing, accessories, tools, and a complete line of men's and women's products, along with essential oils. A lover and supporter of the musical arts here locally and abroad, Cindy has a small stage with stringed instruments and offers discounts to guests if they are willing to play and or sing a song. The Chop Shop Hair Studio is a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll, and 100% pure style, just like our dear friend and owner, Cindy Lou. The hours are Tuesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can also visit thechopshophairstudio.com and or call 865-525-4240 to book your next visit to go and get your hair did. Located at 1206 North Central Street, Knoxville, Tennessee, Chop Shop Hair Studios. Stop by and tell them McGill and Jamie sent you to have one more for the good guys. So we were talking about Johnson Mountain Boys. I'll tell you a good one, Alex. So the Drunk Uncles were down in Nashville one year, and we were playing the Loveless Cafe.
Okay. I'm
sure you've played there. It's this, just this whole stigma of being in Nashville. We were going to the Station Inn the next night, and I know you just played there. And we had a gig at Douglas Corner, so we were making all the right stops and the right rounds and everything. So I was pretty excited about all that stuff, being there for the first time, and different things. And I had just remodeled this house, and I had a turntable in the house that my old hippie neighbor had given me, and I had gotten I'd gotten a compilation box set of records, and I'd actually gotten them from Jeff from back in the day. He didn't want them anymore. And it was called The Sounds of Modern Country, it was The Sounds of Country Music. And it was brought to you by the Armed Forces, Men and Women's Armed Service Forces Radio. Okay. So, and they had this great announcer on there that would come on, and he would say, and be like, the sounds of country music and blah, 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 blah. And here, right. And speaking of that, you can go to your local recruiter and he'd give the pitch and then he'd get into the music. So it's like going in a damn time machine. And here's the number one hit from so-and-so back in, whatever year, then the year that it was in. Uh-huh. And the music would play. So you had this guide or this DJ. This is basically like having a DJ. Right. On the record. Well, this voice, I just kept thinking, man, this is and I wasn't smart enough to think about, trying to read or figure out who it was or any of that stuff. Uh-huh. But I could remember that voice specifically because it was like the guy from the dog show, Basset Hound 137. It was just one of those voices that you just knew. So we're down at the Loveless Cafe. We've just sound checked. We walk backstage. I'm playing my guitar, just warming up a little bit and singing some. And I hear this voice. And I'm like, son of a bitch, that's the voice. Yeah. What the fuck? Who is that? Yeah. I got to go find this guy. Right. Because I knew. My ears, I got good ears. And I was like, this is the voice. I got to go find out who this is. Well, I get up there to the side of the stage, and he's there doing his thing from his little podium on the side of the stage. And it's Eddie Stubbs. Eddie Stubbs, yeah. And I'm like, holy hell, that was him the whole time. The fiddle player for the Johnson Mountain Boys, live at the old schoolhouse. Oh, yeah.
It was the guy.
Did you mention it to him?
Oh, I went up to him after he got finished. He was walking off, and I said, Mr. Stubbs. He said, yes. I said, just big fan. Just got a quick question for you, if you don't mind. He said, sure, what is it? And I said, did you ever do a series of records for the Armed Services radio broadcast system or whatever the hell it was? I probably said all the wrong names, but he goes, wow. He said, I hadn't heard or thought about that in a long, long time. And I said, well, if I'd have known it was the fiddle player from the Johnson Mountain Boys that was doing that voice, I said, I had no idea. First of all, I said, and second of all, I was backstage just warming up, getting my voice ready and playing a little guitar. And I heard your voice and I instantly knew it was you. So he told me a little bit of story about it. And it was one of his first gigs in getting into using his voice as a tool versus being a fiddle player.
Right.
Just like what we were talking about. All constantly reinventing yourself, learning new sides of the business, doing what you got to do to survive and to keep in this business for as long as you can. But he was really gracious and told me a little bit about it. And but it was Eddie Stubbs. And I told him, I said, well, there's a lot of times when I'm at home, I said, I tell my buddies if they're around or if I've got somebody over or maybe it's just myself, I said, but I always refer to putting those records on as like, we're going to power up the time machine tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And go back in time. And,
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. He was really, really, really cool.
Yep.
Tremendous fiddle player.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've met Eddie a few different times and he's always been very gracious and nice. And, good Lord, the history. Growing up, I tried to soak in everything I could about the history. And, I bought all those Bear Family box sets of Flatt and Scruggs and, Jim and Jesse and all of the first generation bluegrass guys and tried to just study those and try to remember who was playing on each session and all that. Cause I love that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And when I got to be about 20 or 21, I finally just, I used to tell Charlie Lutz, who used to do the Bluegrass Special with me on Tuesday nights. I told Charlie, I said, I'd say, Charlie, between me and you both, I said, we can, if somebody brings up a song and from Flatt and Scruggs or one of the first generation guys, we can tell you what date it was recorded on. But of course, if you ask Eddie Stubbs, he'll tell you what they ate at the Waffle House the morning they recorded it.
Yeah.
But anyhow, Eddie is so unbelievable at what all he knows about the history of it. It's amazing.
He was one of the two guys at the Grand Ole Opry for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he used that voice for...
Yeah. Oh, it was a great voice, too. I still got those records. They're over at the Neighbors now. I still have them in the box.
To hear you, when you were talking about it, I was thinking that he would be a lot older than he is.
Yeah. How old is he?
He's born in 61. So
wow. He's not that old.
62 and counting, I guess.
10 years older than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very gracious and very hospitable. But I just knew, man, that voice. I know that. What
exactly.
What is that from? And I kept trying to rack my brain, and finally it clicked. I was like, it's from those records.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Well, we've had a really good time having you here tonight, Alex.
Mike, I wish that we could just keep on rolling. I love talking about all of our experiences. And I'd like to go for another 3 or 4 hours if we could, and hopefully we can maybe hit a part 2 here before long.
I think that's what we should plan on, because there's a lot I wanted to ask, and I'm sure you may have even had stuff you wanted to ask too, but we just kind of skimmed the surface. But it was it was a pretty good effort at skinning the surface.
Oh yeah, we've got so many stories and things to talk about now, and let's do it again here in a month or two. Just let me know when. I'll be here. I absolutely love it, and then I've always looked up to you and appreciate all of your music, whether it's bluegrass or anything that you do. I've always loved what you've done, and I appreciate you including me in the podcast. It's been a real treat getting to come down here.
Well, you're very welcome, Alex, and it's always been I appreciate the kind words. It's a treat to see you grow and through the years, and see that you're still just as excited, and that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that you knew it. Knowing now from this conversation, knowing that you knew it from such an early age, I'm appreciative of getting to know that now.
Oh yeah,
I kind of felt like I knew it, but I didn't have confirmation on it until you were sharing that story. But yeah, we'll definitely do it again. It's been a fun time. Hopefully, everybody out there. Our listeners have had a good time. If you're not, just keep your mouth shut and let your comments all to yourself. And Jamie, you want to do another one?
Oh yeah.
Well, folks, you heard it here first. We'll do another one, and cheers. Here's one more for the good guys.
Cheers.
You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find.